A warm welcome to the third day of the week and the 10th day of the first month of January. This is Wednesday. Welcome aboard the AM show with yours truly. Thank you for your company. Now, you know how we do. I'll be serving you the news in a bit, followed by the news review, and we're joined by political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asasante. Here's our guest this morning. For AM Sports, as always, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi will be serving it hot, followed by the big stories. In the course of the week, we've been talking about everything from the economy to education to sanitation and more. Today, we continue our conversation on what government should focus on this year. And we're going to be talking about, guess what, agriculture and health. Join us for those all-important conversations. There's no nation without a backbone in agriculture. And of course, without health, where would we be? We'd be all dead. So we'll focus on those two thematic areas today in terms of our expectations on what government should do. Now, today being a Wednesday, as we always do, courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, will come your way with AM Business. And then we'd love to hear from you. You'd notice that in the course of the week, we've been giving you more and more time to share with us what your thoughts are. Today, like I said, we focus on health and agriculture. How do you feel we're faring? Feel free to share your grading with us as far as this government is concerned. There is 1D, 1F on one hand. It feeds into agriculture. There's planting for food and jobs, among other things. How do you feel government has fared? Share your thoughts with us via the live stream, Joy News on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. On that note, let's settle for the news. Up next. Thank you for staying. Welcome to the News Belt on the AM show. Now, in our first story, the chief of Seniase and the Kontehene of Brekum is inviting the owner of a goat farm facing evacuation due to an age-old custom to a meeting that will provide a possible solution to the problem. Joy News investigations point to an ultimatum which elapsed last year, ordering residents to remove all goats from the town. The CEO of Semantia Learning and Development Farm, Frederick Benne, says he has been given 2 weeks to relocate because the gods of Brekum forbid the rearing of goats in the town. But the chief of the town says he's not aware of any such orders from the traditional council. The Osahene, Asoma Ajiman Sebi, says the Semantia farms should sit with Nananom to look at possible solutions. Love FM's Erastus Asaridonko has been following this development in Brekum and filed this report.
Brekum, an old town in the Bono region, set up as a security post by the Ashantis. You could keep cattle, sheep, any type of bird or animal, but it's a taboo to rear goats. No matter how strange it sounds, traditional authorities and some indigents like Antebedu, who came to the town in the 60s, believe the river deity, Asiokra, casts this misfortune on whoever rears goats in the town.
Do you think you will fare well if you rear goats in the town where our forefathers came to settle and got the name Brekum? No Brekum indigent will prosper if he rears goats. They will be hit by calamities and misfortune.
Others have been told fatal accidents occur in the town due to the presence of goats.
There used to be frequent road accidents, and Nananom consulted oracles and came to the conclusion that the presence of the goats was responsible. As for us, we don't know anything about the spiritual realm, so whatever they tell us, we follow.
We are told a recent enforcement of the custom led to many removing their goats. Some are not happy with the directive.
Seriously, I am not happy with the directive to remove the goats from the town. I used to rear goats, and I have gone bankrupt after we were forced to remove the goats.
That is a very, stressful moment for us at the moment.
One of the affected is Chief Executive Officer of Sementia Learning and Development Farm, Frederick Bene. He tells Joy News he's been given an ultimatum to move his over 250 breeds of goats from the town.
In fact, when we heard this, it was a very stressful story to us, because we had never dreamt that such a tradition that has been abandoned for years will be revoked again this time as we are going forward. Unfortunately, after a series of back and forth discussion, they still insisted that we move from here and have been given a strong warning of 2 weeks to vacate. Otherwise, they will send people here to kill all our animals.
This one staring at me right now is the Boa goat. It's a fascinating breed of goats. He's part of about 250 goats, different breeds, different types, brought in by Sementia farms. But will I say great investment, wrong destination? Because the town, Brekum, hates goats. This is Snase, which of course is part of 38 communities in the Brekum Traditional Council that hates goats, because Asiokra, the river deity, which is some few meters away from here, doesn't like goats. It's a taboo to rear goats. You can bring in a goat, slaughter it and eat it. You can bring the meat into town, but you cannot create this in Brekum. And that is the subject of controversy at the moment. But the chief of Snase and Kontihene of Brekum, Osahene Asomajaman Sebi, wants Sementia Farms to meet Nananom for an amicable resolution.
I don't know whoever gave him that order, because we haven't met on it at the traditional council level, and that place happens to be the highest decision body for the traditional council. We haven't met, and we haven't taken any decision over his removal from our Suland. So I would just advise him, he should come down and let's talk and see how best. Because if the land will reject you, you wouldn't have been there by now. Like by now, we have removed you all the time. So what I'm saying is that there's still room for improvement.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Brekum, Bono region.
Now, over 9 communities in Ampabame in the Ejisu traditional area are resisting attempts by the Ghana Free Zones Authority to occupy land acquired for an export-oriented project, citing unpaid compensations. Over 5,000 houses have been identified for evacuation and demolition pending the submission of required documents. Despite negotiations terms being established in 2005, the affected homeowners claim they have not received the agreed compensation. Here's a report by Clinton Yeboah.
The government in 2021 earmarked $100 million for Ghana Free Zones Authority for the Ejoso Industrial Zone development. Site assessment, environmental and social impact assessment, resettlement and compensation were reported to have been carried out in October 2021. The developmental works were set to begin on the 1,099-acre land located at Ampabame, Buankra and Abinasi in the Ejoso traditional area in the Ashanti region. However, some occupants of lands located at Ampabame say the agreement reached to acquire the lands was not fulfilled by the authority.
The Ampabame chief called the owners of the land into a meeting for the negotiation.
Tikula wo fi say asase no e kan wo no and no mutwitwa ye ne kan wo no bra bi meeting bi and abojeje to ne benkum so besinne bia amfreye misaye say asase no.
Since Nana Boajeje died, nobody has called to update us on the negotiation level. The only thing they did was paying for affected crops when they did the demarcation.
But the fact,
but that does not mean they paid for the land itself. None of us have received a dime.
21 years in
the lands are finished. We don't have any deal with free zone.
Joseph Kofi Ejapon is the Diana Busha penning for Mpabame.
Me basasi su be hu se etutu nsuo pipes mi sisi so miensa enti mi mani pa free zone board.
I came to see that they had started working on the land, so one can confirm some unknown persons are behind this. They have distributed the land for other things, for their own personal use.
The aggrieved landowners say efforts to reach out to the authorities for further negotiations have proven unsuccessful.
We have been to the free zone office, yet we don't get any positive feedback.
More than 10 times.
When you come on your land, you would come and meet soldiers and armed men. I have been to the chief's palace for more than 10 times.
Reporting for Joy News, Clinton Yabwa.
Let's talk politics now. In a bid to make a compelling case to be returned for a second term as the parliamentary aspirant for the MPP in the Kwesimintim constituency, the Member of Parliament for Kwesimintim, Dr. Prince Hamid Ama, ahead of the impending New Patriotic Party primaries on January the 27th, has launched this campaign dubbed Breaking the 4 to Break the 8 to ensure continuity and development in Kwesimintim.
The Kwesimintim constituency since 2012 has had its members of parliament serving only one term, although it remains a stronghold of the New Patriotic Party. However, as the party prepares to go to parliamentary primaries, the incumbent MP, Dr. Prince Hamid Ama, is seeking to remain as the legislator. Launching his campaign, the Vice Chair of Education Committee in Parliament made a compelling case of the development he has been able to achieve as a first-time MP, which should not be truncated. According to him, his distinct performance in Parliament and deliverables are worth of second tenure.
I believe that in the last 3 years, I have done exceedingly well to warrant a second term. The purpose of today's launch is to make a compelling case for my second term, and for the reason why not only the polling station executives and constituency executives or the party delegates, but also the entire community to rally behind me. So essentially, I attempted to demonstrate the work I had done, or I have done, starting from Wendo, all over the communities across the constituency. I have projects there, and so I made a strong case for me to be given a second term to be able to move the constituency forward.
Some of his constituents endorsed his candidature and touted some of his accomplishments for which he deserves a second term.
What he has done aside job opportunities, what he has been doing for the constituency too, we have some in the book here, which is the evidence. Building of schools, building of health facilities, for the constituency. We are going to vote for him and vote for him again. He's the finest MP that we have had. Within all these years, just 3 years, he has done much and so much for us. I will say it and say it again. We are going to vote for him and vote for him again. And we are showing you that Dr. Amma will win massively.
More than 3 years that he has been an MP, and what he has done is marvelous. We have not seen something like that in the constituency before. Yeah, and apart from that, the constituency has been embarking on one-term project. This time around, we don't want all these things to happen again. We are pushing for an MP, a youthful MP who will go forward, like maybe more years that the constituency will benefit from. So these are the many things that we are pushing for the second term of the MP.
Traditional leaders in the constituency have made a passionate appeal to delegates not to hesitate but vote and retain the Member of Parliament, Dr. Prince Hamid Amma, for him to continue addressing the myriad of developmental challenges in the area. Here is Chief of Kwesimintim, Nana Eson.
Nti yepo bi a senator Friday o ko nso esi bo ko yim dema binu be ja wa kan bi nso esi no ko yim no abenchi o ya dema o mo development on ba ko nso esi ni ntaya yin for the ye politics o but me ara kan dey ye pede ko nso esi no ko yim si ye benya anka mama for the dancing wa kan ono ho saying coffee day. You'll be our Tsima, or the Macoinsuance, no. Or the Macoinsuance, no. And see, I come as delegates. One girl.
For Joy News, in Athalia Kwanza, Kwesimintim.
If you're new to it, this is jazz music. It's not been too popular in Ghana, but that's about to change as a new movement has been launched to help push patronage in Ghana. Now, the Ghana Jazz Foundation, launched in Accra over the weekend, wants to make Ghana a destination for jazz music.
Jazz music originated in the African American communities of New Orleans, Louisiana in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, with its roots in blues and ragtime. It has been recognized as a major form of musical expression in traditional and popular music since then. Some jazz music enthusiasts have linked it to positive health benefits such as lower blood pressure and assisting with chronic pain conditions. Listening to jazz music can help people relax and reduce their heart rate, which can especially be helpful for those who suffer from hypertension or other cardiovascular conditions. In Ghana, there's now a movement to encourage Ghanaians to patronize it. The Ghana Jazz Foundation, launched in Accra over the weekend, will seek to make the genre more visible and patronized in the country. Adrian Odoye is president of the Jazz Foundation.
Jazz music it's a difficult thing to push worldwide. But the thing is, once you are very good in jazz, you can play anything else. So we'd like to look at that pinnacle and see where you can get to. But we're not limited to just jazz. We're looking at all art forms. Music literacy is not as high as we would like, and it's one area that we'd like to look at. There are quite a number of people who like jazz. The difficulty will be to push it beyond that group and see how it'll work. But yes, I mean, it's something that we are passionate about and we are prepared to work hard towards.
Musica President Bessa Simons is excited about the development and is already looking forward to making Ghana a destination for jazz music for international tourists.
This foundation means a lot to us as Musica. Because, you know, we have a lot of talent in Ghana with only talent. And we think anything that will add knowledge to talent is so important. And it's not only just adding knowledge to talent. At the same time, it's going to cater for some of the welfare of musicians that not only Musicians Union could do. Having the International Jazz Day in Accra will be a massive boost for the music industry in Ghana. Not only the jazz musicians, but every musician will benefit. It's going to bring all the top jazz musicians to Ghana, and that is going to be great. So my hope is that we are going to collaborate with the Jazz Foundation this time, with the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, and all the synergies that matters, so that this time we get this thing to come to Accra to make it a reality.
Wrap for the news on that jazzy note. Hope that lights up your morning, but stay with us. Up next, the news review. Time now for us to serve you the news review, and we're joined by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He is a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. I'll be bringing him into the conversation shortly. But as we all know, well, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this conversation, this segment, every morning on the AM show. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening for free. If you've never checked out what your prostate is, feeling like the state of it, you are treading on very dangerous ground. It could take you by surprise. It could actually take your life if some things go to a certain extent. Then there is your fertility as a woman. Of course, there's male fertility as well. But as a woman, do you know what your fertility status is like? I always say that, scientifically proven, most women have something going on in terms of fibroids and other things that are normal, but they could get out of hand. And then that is where it becomes problematic. So do you know your fertility status? If you don't, it's just disaster in the waiting. At least if you know, then you know what the status is, and you can be sure that you are in tip-top shape. And that is why I'm proffering for you this morning Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. What they're offering you, if you're a man, is prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Here's where you can find them. Here in Accra, they're at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and I'd like to ask this question, pose this question before I proceed to my guest. Did your lights go off at some point yesterday? And if they did, when were they restored, right? When were your lights, or when was the light restored? I hear in places like Tantra Hill, lights went off in Parakou, the Parakou Estates area, Spintex, the lights were off, and in many other places. And what got many people upset was that it was like a disco light thing, on, off, and then it will go off for quite a while. We saw something about WAPCO and its supply and everything. But let me know. Just shoot us a message via the live stream, Joy News on Facebook. Let's know whether your lights were on or off yesterday. On that note, let me bring in Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Good morning, Doc. Happy New Year to you.
Good morning, Ben. To see you. Many happy returns. Yes, we are happy to be back on this business of ours. Yeah.
Right, in this business of ours. I like the way you put it. If you papa, after saying that, all right. So in Chi, what he's basically said, I asked him in a year's time, what can we expect? And he said we would have voted and in peace and would be progressing from there. Were your lights on throughout yesterday? I know you were probably not at home throughout, but wherever you were, and did you get information that the lights had gone off or stayed on at home?
Unfortunately, I couldn't. I was in school.
Okay.
But I came back after 9 p.m. and the lights were on.
Okay.
But some days ago, they were off throughout the night, some hours within the night because I was doing some piece of work. But it returned in a few hours' time.
I see. All right, so
I couldn't check.
Since this is our first engagement in the year, I'd like to find out from you, what do you make of last year? We've spoken about everything from the economy to sanitation to education. Today we're contemplating agriculture and health later on the show. But how do you assess this government's performance in 2023 from where you sit? You can give a score on 1 to 10, but just break it down for us. How did you find 2023? What are your expectations, Doc, in 2024? In a maximum of 2 minutes, if you can put that together.
2023, very difficult. Difficult in the sense that we saw the financial problems hitting hard at the ordinary man. Not only that, even extended to the middle class and then the top class. Yeah, you saw, people picketing near the premises of the finance ministry and the rest of them. We also saw up funds issue of parliament and all the problems in the allegation of bribery in there, a whole lot. But I believe that in all this, there is something that is clear, that one, our economy has been mismanaged. And this is how that defines how far we have come in terms of our relationship with the IMF one more time. It is unfortunate because the experience with IMF has always been bitter and not a preferred option. But hey, if you have a government that will not listen and continue to borrow in such a fashion that you have no choice than to go there, then it becomes something worrying. I'm also worried about the fact that we have a government that looks unconcerned whilst our water bodies are being destroyed, and all the problems associated with it. Today, scientific research from KNUST tell us that a lot of our river bodies have been polluted, and that have given rise to a number of health issues, including kidney diseases and the rest of them. It's a threat, and I'm surprised that this country is taking it lightly. It's a big threat. It's a big threat. When we saw the shutdown of the Renal section of Kolibu, then we realized that we are in okra soup. But it appears to me that we don't care a hoot about this. The issue of vote buying in our elections, particularly within the MPP, as we saw, doling out of money and the rest of them under the guise that we are just paying transport and the rest of them. Very, very unfortunate. But if you put all in all, we will say that yes, we as a society, we have also contributed our quota to this demise that we are seeing. Because sometimes we sit down as if there is nothing at stake. We look unconcerned. But going forward, I believe that we have to up our game and do what is expected of us, to be vigilant at all times. And don't hesitate to criticize a government and suggest ways forward. I think that is the way to go. So in summary, I think there were pluses, there were minuses, but hey, we look for better times within this year.
Thank you so much for those thoughts shared. Of course, if you remain silent, then you can be no more than, or nothing less than, a collaborator. It is said that in times when things are bad, or I don't want to use evil from the original quote, when times are bad, it is not the failure to act of good people, it is their silence. When you keep quiet, when the wrong things are happening, then of course you cannot be anything else but a collaborator in the wrongdoing. Let's get into the newspapers now, and the Daily Graphic headlines: Economy as election beckons, demand solutions from parties, Presby moderator to citizenry. I like the fact that now some of the churches are also, because some of them have been woefully silent. And I always say that if you've been silent in the past and you're silent now, fine. But if you've been vociferous in the past, and all of a sudden you go mute, it becomes problematic, because then people start to question where you're coming from. There's also redeploy military to support Galamsey fight in forest reserves. Forestry Commission says so. And yes, in some places, recently we heard of a story where in one of these reserves, people have started literally mining. And it's not that it had gone on for about 3 months. It wasn't without the knowledge of the Forestry Commission. People knew. They waited until stories were done and all of that before, well, they moved in and did a few things. After the person had already started damaging our environment left, right, and center. I say for this country, only God, only God. Digital devices necessity for fourth industrial revolution. Dr. Baumia says so. Adopt civil society approach to constitutional reforms. Professor Okwe says so. And then the voice of the people unveiled, the new force. Before I go on, let me just ask you, this whole bit about the new force. I'm sure, I don't know whether you followed, when Patrice Lumumba, PLO Lumumba, Julius Malema, I didn't see Julius Malema there, but Dr. Arikana and Pete Obi were meant to speak at the Independence Square, and they were prevented from doing so, ostensibly because while they had been granted permission, there was some other government events that would happen there. That government event never happened anyway. But what do you think of what happened that day on Constitution Day? I am not in support of any grouping or any movement or whatever, but I feel on a day when we celebrated the Constitution itself was bastardized, breached. People have freedom of, movement, freedom to congregate, to mass up, freedom of assembly. What is your quick take on that before I get into the other stories?
Yes, I must say that I did not follow the whole event, but I picked bits and pieces from the media space. And I'm so surprised that, what happened. One, I want to know from the national security people that if there is any law that the people have breached, they should let us know. Yes. If it's wrong for them to form an association or a group like that, they should let us know. Because I am a student of democracy, and I believe that this game of democracy is played with rules that govern the conduct of people. So if there is a breach, obviously there's a sanction. And they are law enforcement agency. They should be able to quick and address this. Other than that, you ask yourself, why were they prevented from doing what they were doing? Right? Is it the case that our, the government is very much afraid of the so-called third force? You and I know that third force will not win any election in this country. It is clear from the literature, unless, of course, people are not aware of that in the literature. Because in Ghana, political party systems are very strong. So being a third force, you are not going to win election within the shortest possible time. Why? Because there are two factors here. Parties are strong, and two, the electoral system that we have in this country does not permit us to survive, right? Because we use the simple majority system, first past the post system. So whoever wins the election can win with even one vote, and that's the end. And that doesn't support the effort of a third force. For a third force, then you must move into what? Proportional representation, where you need a certain portion to be able to win. So at best, you form a coalition government that limits the powers of what? Dominant parties and the rest of them. Evidence abound in, Germany, Israel, Belgium, and the rest of them. So why would the government be afraid of a third force? I mean, once you begin to have that type of thinking, then it tells me that you are afraid of the elections ahead. I mean, because for me, there are a lot of things that you can allow it to pass relative to a third force, right? Or from all that I've said, you should not be scared of a third force. But the real issue is that they also can be what? Kingmakers. When they perform well with the support of other parties, they will be able to push election to a second round. We have seen from research that if you put all the efforts of political parties from 1992, the smaller ones I'm talking about, to 2020, the average have not gone beyond 4%. So why worried about a third force? All right, they should. And so I was so surprised that. And then the issue about what foreigners who are coming to speak here on that forum and all that. Those are things I find that But the likes of PLO Lumumba has been in Ghana so many times for speaking events. He's been in Ghana so many times. Ben, you let us consider, for the purposes of this conversation, that he's even coming for the first time. Is it new? And is it something that is not allowed in this country? We saw when the MPP elected Dr. Baumia at the stadium, we saw an invitation extended to what I think Labour Party representative who came and also gave a speech. I'm sure you saw that. I think Labour or Conservative Party representative was there. I mean, is it wrong? It's normal. So after all, at the end of the day, it is the people of this country that vote. It's not an outsider who come with all manner of fine speeches and the rest of them.
Right.
So if you are afraid of, all these people or all these type of structures, then I'm likely to think that you are afraid of the elections ahead of you, because all these things should not worry you. If you are focused, if you have really honored your promises, if you have always served your people well, you should not be afraid of this. So, going forward, we should look at these things and look at them carefully, and in order not to panic in all these things and allow the forces of democracy to work.
All right, I have some messages coming through because I asked about the light situation. Awal, you say, Charlie, modern city hotel self for Tamale get light off, if not for standby generator like Phyla Cookathon 10 beans. That's what Awal says. He says, even at the Modern City Hotel, where we know Chef Phyla is organizing her cookathon, that if not for standby generators, her cookathon would have been affected. So the lights went off in Tamale as well. Nana Kweku says, Dumso has become normal in my area, and even as at now, our light is off. Nana Kweku, I'd like to know which area are you in, just so we can know and also help by putting the word out. Charles Mensah says, at Ashaiman, lights went on and off during the day, and in the evening went off around 4 p.m. and only returned this morning at 6 a.m. This occurrence has been happening for the past 4 months, especially between Atadeka and Katamanso Ashaiman. Okay. Thank you for sharing those messages. As you share them, we put them out, and hopefully you can get some relief as well. Other stories to look at. So let's start with economy as election beckons. Demand solutions from parties. Presby moderator to citizenry. The moderator of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, Right Reverend Dr. Abraham Nana Opare Kwache, has asked Ghanaians to demand of political parties how they will transform the economy ahead of this year's general election. He said the transformation and improvement of the economy should be the main focus of the election, given the difficulties of the times. Quoting him, he says, "So for me, the economy is important and it is my number one thing. We should not wait for them to come and tell us. We should force the political parties to talk to us about what differently they can do to transform and improve the economy. We mustn't allow them to set our agenda for us, else it would be like you're going to write an exam, you're setting your own question, you're answering it, and then marking it." Right Reverend Dr. Oparikwachi told the Daily Graphic in an exclusive interview. He also said, for instance, the Electoral Commission should endeavor to conduct a free, fair, and transparent elections. He said, as much as Ghanaians were nursing hope in 2024, quote, "We want to encourage all the stakeholders in the elections to work towards peace." So that is the first story. I'll then do the one on page 13 and add to that. Adopt civil society approach to constitutional reforms. Professor Okwe says so. A former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, has proposed that civil society organizations must be allowed to lead the process of initiating constitutional reforms. He explained that the civil society approach would bring about broader consultations and introduce techniques such as peace building and the reform processes for effective implementation of reports on constitutional reforms. Professor Quay, who is also a distinguished scholar of the Institute of Economic Affairs, a policy think tank in the country, was speaking in an interview with the Daily Graphic in Accra ahead of last Sunday's commemoration of the Constitution Day. Interestingly, I've heard, for example, former President John Mahama talk about the fact that some things definitely ought to change in the 1992 Constitution, referencing the 2010 commission set up to review, the Constitutional Review Commission, and the white paper and how it has gathered dust. But then, of course, you can also ask, he was in power at the time. Why did he not do anything about it? Well, better late than never if he has that thinking. But then this current administration, you hear the Attorney General say that, in fact, it was in yesterday's papers, that a general overhaul of the Constitution is not on the cards, it's not the best way to go. But some people insist, and me, one thing that definitely must go. We have a presidency that is too powerful, appointing everybody and anybody. It's a recipe for disaster, and we see it in the corruption and everything going on. I don't know what your take is on these two matters. Demand solutions from parties, don't let them set the agenda. We must set the agenda, but will they listen? And secondly, constitutional reforms. What is your take, Doc?
I'll start with the moderator. Good speech by the moderator, but I'll urge the moderator that after this, we want to hear him more on issues of national interest. Because more often than not, we hear people who are close to election. After election, when real governance starts, we don't hear their voices anymore. And it allows society to degenerate. People of his standing are very important when we are governing a society because they have a lot of following. So we expect him to continue to support us and don't shy away, should not shy away from criticisms that will support the effort at ensuring a solid democracy in this country. If you look at the economy, touch on the economy, and that the economy, we should make sure that all the political actors will tell us how to make it right and how to ensure that we live better lives ahead of election and the rest of them. Good thing, because if you look at research, the economy is always number one priority of the voter since time immemorial. So it's not going to change. We are going to ask all the difficult questions, and we expect the political parties to give us the right answers. And I'll urge Ghanaians to listen with rapt attention when politicians are, proposing ideas and offering solutions to a problem. We should be, you and I who are in that space, and we can help them to understand the issue, help them. And that if there is a need to throw a party out of power through election, why not? If there's a need to welcome opposition into the system, they have better ideas, why not? If there's a need to maintain a government which has done so well, why not? So we have a role as groups and individuals who have what it takes to be able
Hello, Doc. Hello, Dr. Kwame Asante. Okay, we have a challenge with the connection. We'll try to get him back and let him continue with his thoughts on those. But let's quickly hit the international front and say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Sierra Leone charges 27 soldiers over foiled coup attempt. That story is on page 5. A court in Sierra Leone has charged 27 soldiers with multiple offenses over an alleged coup attempt. The charges include mutiny, failure to suppress mutiny, murder, aiding the enemy, communicating with the enemy, and other relevant offenses, the Defense Ministry said in a statement. Doc, I hear you just a sec. Last November, gunmen broke into a military armory and several prisons in Freetown, freeing almost 2,000 inmates. Doc, yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
So, still on the moderator's comment about EC. Yeah, the EC has an important role to perform, making sure that they conduct the election and we have nothing but free and fair election. So any problem that are likely to be created by the EC by virtue of the work that they do, they should be able to think about it again. People have expressed concern about the fact that they are not going to allow the use of indelible ink. They should look at it again. I'm not sure the proposal sits well with the well-meaning Ghanaians of this country. The issue of not allowing, any other document except the Ghana card is also must be looked at again, so as to encourage everybody who the law says is qualified to vote and be voted for. Above all, I expect the EC to do away of the things that are associated with normally its work. You saw last election where the EC announced results, and then in no time comes out with another set of results and all that. That type of rejoinder, we don't want that because it creates all manner of problems. And all that I'm saying that the EC should be able to put its house in order during the elections and beyond. Peace building or peace and stability is important. We need that, and we want to involve all the stakeholders so as to ensure that this election produces nothing but free and fair outcome and in an atmosphere of peace. Civil society and constitutional reforms by my own good professor, Professor Michael Quay, is a welcoming news. But the Constitution, people have said so many things that we don't have to, temper with it. We have to tread cautiously and all that. And that is why I support the Okway's call that put the stakeholders together. They have what it takes to be able to look at all these things. And that at the end of the day, they will be able to know where to reform, where to amend, and where to make changes so that they reflect the changing circumstances of the time. I think that is a way to go.
I was on the international front talking about Sierra Leone charging 27 soldiers over a foiled coup attempt, but also on the international front, Macron picks Attal, 34, as France's youngest prime minister at 34 in Ghana. What would you be doing? Yes, we've had a few people in there, the Kojo Kromers, the Samukujetwa Blackwares, the former Deputy Information Minister and Communications Minister as well. Oh, I forget his name, with the NDC. I've forgotten his name. And a few other young people. Beyond that, Zilch, yes, Kwachiofosu, Felix Kwachiofosu, among others. But if you look at it, but you see the other side, Doc, is what you find in other cases. For example, in Nigeria, where the Minister for Something and Poverty, so the Poverty Minister, is now being accused. The first person to be investigated under the Tinubu regime for supposedly some £500,000 that were sent into a private account when they should have been sent into a government account and all of that. She's 37, the youngest minister on his cabinet. And that also creates problems because I feel sometimes that takes away from the shine of what young people can do. And then when young people get the opportunity, you could say they mess it up sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes.
It shouldn't be a difficult thing because, Ben, we saw the late Dr. John Sufurata. I think he was about 25 years when he was a deputy minister. Fantastic young man.
John Ajekum Kufuor
really,
himself under Buzia was 20 something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So it's normal. We don't need it's not necessarily the issue of age or gray hair in your head. No, it is about what ideas and what the all that you need to be able to do your work. Otherwise, we will say that we only require Methuselah to run the affairs of this state. I mean, wisdom does not reside in gray hair alone. It resides in even people without hair and all that. So all that I'm saying is that we need the best brains. It doesn't matter who is that person. He can be a toddler, a teenager, or whatever, provided he has what it takes. Why not?
Right. Landmark presidential immunity case heard in court. It has to do with Donald Trump and the accusation that he conspired to overturn the 2020 election and committed fraud to stay in office. His lawyers argue that the office of the White House shields him from his 2020 election fraud charges. Well, we'll leave that to the Americans. Blinken carries Arab message to Israel. Let's wrap quickly with some interesting stories. I don't know whether you followed the BBC bit on Prophet TB Joshua, who has now, he's passed, but a BBC synagogue church tango over TB Joshua. There have been accusations, women claiming this and that. I've not gone into the full thrust of things. I've always had my issues with some people in these religious circles, but I am nobody. I'm not going to judge anybody. But at the same time, I also feel post the fact, with the person not around to defend himself, it's a bit murky in there, but hey, it is what it is. Government supports the Digital Village project. Bawumia unveils campaign focus. What has he been saying? At the forefront of his priorities is a strong emphasis on digitization and the use of technology to promote inclusive economic growth. He emphasized that his commitment to driving digitization would serve as a cornerstone for achieving success in his campaign. He highlighted the transformative potential of technology and bolstering economic opportunities for all segments of society, emphasizing its role in fostering greater inclusion and accessibility. I guess it is digitization all the way for Bawumia. Ghanaian Times, ex-President Mahama recommits to reviewing constitution if elected, like I've already mentioned, and 18 MPP MPs bow out of parliament. The final paper I'll look at, the Daily Searchlight. JM to tour Volta Ashanti regions on the Building the Ghana We Want tour. And then SML $1 billion deal is a scam. Bust source says so. You know of the SML deal. Final thoughts, Doc, and we can wrap.
I think the digitization issue by the Vice President is not new. What we expect the Vice President as a head of the economic management team is to be able to support the effort of government very well so that this economy remains sound now to the election and beyond. That is more important. Yes, when the economy is sound, then you can introduce all manner of technology and all that. After all, the two work hand in hand, but you can put emphasis on digitization alone whilst you leave the real economic stuff. I think the Vice President knows more than I do. So he will look at that. 18 MPs bow out of parliament.
Yeah.
Yes.
Samuel Atachia, Kennedy Japan, the likes of the majority leader, all of them bowing out of parliament, opting out.
Yeah. Sometimes in parliamentary business, this is how it is. There is always entry and exit. And sometimes you lose giants in parliament. It's painful because then it affects the quality of debate and parliamentary work. There's no doubt about that. But the good news about this, which addresses that same problem, is that those who come in will in no time learn the ropes and live up to expectation. We should not deceive ourselves into believing that there are people that we can dispense of their services and want to remain in parliament forever. Sometimes you hear from political parties that, the attrition rate is too high and all that. I disagree, and I disagree vehemently. Because those who went to parliament and made their day and then, performed so well to the admiration of many is the fact that they were able to do that based on the fact that people give them the opportunity to go there and be tested, and they prove their mettle. So once we lose them, others who will come and fill the void. It is not as if that they are people that we cannot dispense of their services. What about even if we lose them? Touch wood, we lose them in life. Are we going to bring their goods to come and administer in Parliament? That is always, society always create opportunity for new generation to step into the shoes of the old ones and then live up to expectation. So let us accept that and then move on. But we wish them a good life, and we thank them for all the support they've rendered to Parliament. I believe that outside Parliament, they will continue to be useful and help us to engage and build a better society for ourselves.
Thank you, Doc. As always, you make our Wednesdays wunderbar Wednesdays, like the Germans would say, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, interacting with us there. A few more messages. Energy Booster says some parts of Accra Newtown went dark around 7 a.m. and light was restored at dawn around 5 a.m. David Ajika says, yesterday by 9 p.m. the lights went off and were restored by 1 a.m. in Pandai. And there's also King Harrison. You allude to something we did in the news, the story about the goat rearing. And you say, good morning, please, regarding the news of the rearing of goats at Brekum, I want to know if the consumption is also banned in the town. If not, it will be interesting to see them consume meat, which is said to be a bad omen in their own land. King Harrison, you are being naughty here. Anyway, a very good morning to Nana Joabena. You know yourself. A very good morning to you. I wish you a speedy recovery. Stay well. God be with you. Fantastic. Nana Joabena. I see your head getting swollen already. Anyway, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. They're offering prostate screening for free, fertility screening for free. That is if you're a woman. And you can reach them at any of their branches. Here in Accra, it's Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronomabwe behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakradi Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siaman Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Yesterday, sad news for Chelsea. I wish Dennis were here for me to tease him. They went down to Middlesbrough. There's more on that and in sports right up next on the AM Show.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports. I am Muftau Navida Abdullahi. On Tuesday, President Akufo-Addo held a farewell dinner with the Black Stars ahead of the African Cup of Nations to be staged in Côte d'Ivoire. The Black Stars will open its campaign on Sunday, January 14, against Cape Verde, and they are flying out of Ghana later today. President Nana Akufo-Addo and the Minister of Youth and Sports traveled to Kumasi, where the team is camping, to hold a farewell dinner with the team ahead of the event. And in some photographs, and then interestingly, Stonebwoy was also there to sing for the team so that they will be able to have the motivation required to end Ghana's about 42 years of waiting to win the African Cup of Nations. This tournament was last won by Ghana in 1982 when Abedi Pele was then 16. Since then, Ghana has not been able to compete and win the trophy. The country has made it to the final twice since 1992. 1992, the team was in the final. They lost to Côte d'Ivoire. In 2010, the team was in the final. They lost to Egypt. In 2015, again, the team was in the final and lost to Côte d'Ivoire once again. And this was the president delivering his speech during the farewell dinner, which happened in Kumasi on Tuesday night. Now let's move on and bring you other stuff that are happening surrounding the senior national team, the Black Stars, as we head to the African Cup of Nations 2023. Well, it was the president, the vice president, rather, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who was also in his native region, which is the Northeast region, to commission a sports complex named Nashiriga Sports Complex. My colleague Elias Utanko was there and comes through with this report.
The initial postponement following confusion at home over the Boku chieftaincy dispute, the Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia returned over the weekends to Nalirgu, the Northeast regional capital, to commission a new astroturf for sporting and recreational activities in the East Mamprusi municipality. According to Joy News sources, the initial arrangement to commission the facility on the 28th of December was abrogated after an arrangement could not be reached between the office of the Vice President and the executives of the Mamprugu Youth Association over the presence of the Nairis and Stall Boku Naba at the event grounds. Dr. Bawumia was accompanied by the Minister for Youth and Sports, the National Chairman of the ruling party, and several other dignitaries of the party. It was the third of such facilities to be commissioned into operation in the region since the coming into power of the government. The facility comes with a standard football pitch that can be utilized for even national matches, flashlight for nighttime activities, 1,000 capacity spectator stands, changing rooms furnished with water and sanitation facilities, offices for managers of the facility, and a public washroom. The facility was constructed after the youth of Nalirgu mounted a strong protest against the Vice President and the regional minister after the construction of a second astroturf in Wale. Commissioning the project, the Vice President, after inspecting the auxiliary facilities, said the new infrastructure would help in the development of sports in the region.
I'm very happy with the work. The facilities are first class, and I just hope that we maintain them as such as we go forward. But I'm a happy man today, and I'm very impressed with the work that has been done. I think that it will be a facility that will help sports and particularly football in Nalirgu Gambaga and its environment.
The facility has been named after Nashiriga, a late overlord of Mamprugu. The Minister of Youth and Sports, Mustafa Yusuf, also said the facility will facilitate the development of grassroots sports whilst playing out the achievement of this government in the development of sports nationwide.
Under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, when it comes to sports infrastructure, there's no any government since independence that can match his record in terms of sports infrastructure and sports development. So having done all these sports facilities, now the focus is now grassroots sports development. We are now going to have district level sports competitions. Then we move to the regional level, to the national level, so that we can develop talent at the grassroots.
The minister further announced his pledge to support the fast-growing local football clubs in the region. He, however, called on the local managers of the facility to strictly adhere to the dictates contained in the maintenance manual to ensure the facility is always fit for purpose.
There is going to be a committee set up, and the committee, the chief, the Nairi will have a rep on the committee. You have also the assembly having a rep, the regional minister will have a rep, the community, the youth will also have a rep on the committee. And this committee will ensure that they follow the guidelines on the maintenance manual so that we can use to maintain this facility. We can't put in huge investment like this, then at the end of the day, we don't maintain it well, and we have to look for money to come and renovate it again.
According to the details of the contract, a wall will be constructed to protect the facilities. As it stands, only the football pitch is fenced with wire mesh.
This is the first phase of the project, and going forward, the second phase will look at getting a fence wall so that there can be security.
The contractor, Robert Tete Coleman, also could not tell the exact amount of money spent so far on the project, saying he will be able to provide the financial details after the end of the yet to begin second phase. Elias Sutanko from Nalirgu for Joy News.
Now, let's bring you a profile of coaches heading to the African Cup of Nations 2023. And guess what? About 13 of the coaches going to the African Cup of Nations are expatriates, whilst about 11 of them are indigenous coaches handling the various countries ahead of the tournament that starts on Saturday. And you will have the likes of Chris Houghton, who is going to be manning the technical bench of the Black Stars. There's also Ouattara for Guinea. And also Walid, who is heading the technical bench of Morocco into the African Cup of Nations 2023. So it's a profile of the coaches who are going into the competition. And guess what? This is a tournament per CAF is going to be the best yet to be organized under the umbrella of the Confederation of African Football as they seek to ensure that the tournament reaches out to a wider audience. So the best of football is going to be played. And one of the powerful media organizations to acquire the broadcast rights, also Sky Sports. So every single match in the African Cup of Nations for 2023 will be broadcast on Sky Sports. So these are the coaches for the African Cup of Nations 2023, and just a brief profile of them.
Mel, whose contract was not renewed after a disappointing campaign in Cameroon, where the Elephants were eliminated in the quarterfinals by Egypt. The 69-year-old French tactician bears the heavy responsibility of guiding the host nation in this competition, starting with the opening game on January 13 against Guinea-Bissau. According to Ivorian football chief Idriss Diallo, the target is for him to win the tournament or at least reach the semi-finals. Otherwise, his contract will not be renewed for another year. Despite his first experience leading a national team, Jean-Louis Gasset can rely on his extensive coaching background, having managed several French clubs, including Montpellier, Saint-Etienne and Bordeaux. He also served as an assistant coach to Laurent Blanc at Bordeaux, the French national team, and Paris Saint-Germain. At home, the Elephant, under his guidance, will strive to lift a third continental trophy following their successes in 1992 in Senegal and 2015 in Equatorial Guinea. In Nigeria, however, Portuguese manager Jose Peseiro has been at the helm of the Nigerian national team since May 2022. Taking over from Austin Eguavoen, the 63-year-old manager faces the challenging task of leading the Super Eagles in the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations in Côte d'Ivoire, where the country aspires to a better performance than the last edition in Cameroon, where they were surprisingly eliminated by Tunisia in the round of 16. Despite a challenging time with the Super Eagles so far, Jose Peseiro will be looking to draw on his rich experience, having previously served as the head coach of Saudi Arabia between 2009 and 2011 and Venezuela 2020 to 2021, and his managerial duties at Club Braga, Porto and Sporting to achieve the goals set by Nigerian football authorities. With him, Nigeria aims for a fourth continental crown after triumphs in 1980, 1994 and 2013. In Equatorial Guinea, Juan Obiang Misha will lead the Nzalan Nacional at the AFCON for the second consecutive edition after being confirmed as the head coach in March 2021 following a 5-month interim period. In the 2021 edition in Cameroon, he achieved a sensational run with his team, reaching the quarterfinals after eliminating Mali in the round of 16 and defeating Algeria in the group stage. At 48 years old, Juan Obiang Misha is a former Equatorial Guinean footballer who played for his country in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He began his coaching career at Fuenlabrada in Spain before joining the Equatorial Guinea women's national team as an assistant coach from 2012 to 2013. Before becoming the interim head coach of Equatorial Guinea in late 2020 and subsequently confirmed in March 2021, he also coached the country's under-17 and under-20 teams as well as Deportivo Unidad, a club based in Malabo. He aims to surpass the 2015 performance at home, the year of Nzalan Nacional's best ever finish in the competition, placing 4th. And finally, for the Guinea-Bissau national team, 57-year-old Bassirou Kande has been in charge since 2016. This year in Côte d'Ivoire, he will lead his country in its 4th CAF Africa Cup of Nations tournament. A former defender, he played for Estrela de Amadora and Amara in Portugal before embarking on a coaching career. This marks his second stint at the helm after an initial tenure between 2001 and 2009 at the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Guiding his team beyond the first round will be his ultimate target, after the team failed to do so in the 2016, 2019 and 2021 editions.
And we bring you something on athletics and Ghana athletics. They have launched their inter-school competition, which will be happening later this year. And the inter-school competition is expected to be used to test many of the facilities that are going to be hosting the Africa Games. We understand that the laying of the tracks for the African Games will start on January 12th, and they are expected to do that within 6 weeks. The launch was done. My colleague Elon Benai, the Fiamakpo, was there and comes through with this report.
The launch of the National Inter-Schools Athletics Championship took place on Tuesday afternoon, January 9, at the Sports Ministry Conference Hall in Accra. Some 50 schools and 1,500 athletes will be selected to participate in the NISAC Athletics Festival. The event is to serve as a test run on the new facilities at the University of Ghana ahead of the 2023 African Games.
We want to do the sports course just like how Jamaica does their school sports, just like how Americans are doing their conference, so that it has a worldwide view. We also want to be that program to be the topmost program in Ghana and in Africa. And together with the stakeholders, the Ghana Education Service, the Ministry of Youth and Sport, National Sports Authority, we should be able to get to that feat. And I do not have any doubt in my mind that within the next 4 years, Ghana athletics should be on top of African athletics. And we are going to use this competition as a test competition for the African Games facility in Legon. Before that, the Mundo might have finished the installation of the tracks. We are going to use that one as a test for the tracks. And after that, then we'll now proceed to the African Games campaign.
Sports Minister Mustafa Yusuf was also excited about the event.
Last week, I was in Koforidua with His Excellency the President of the Republic to commission the first stadium, which comes with athletics tracks. And Team Ghana for African Games were there to practice. Aside that, the other 9 sports stadium which is built, we have just scheduled the commissioning date for 5 more, and the other 4, we are hoping that we complete them as well this year, so that we have more tracks, not only in Accra, but across the country. Like previous speakers mentioned, sports, as we all know, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Aside the competition itself, is going to bring a lot of economic activities at the various centers where these championships are going to be held going forward. And we are also working with the local organizing committee chair, who is here with me, and the National Sports Authority, the Deputy Director General is here with me, and also with my team, my Chief Director, who is also here with me. We are working around the clock with the AU to position Ghana as the Africa city, Accra, especially Accra, as the African city for sports for 2024.
The Athletics Festival is set to kick off from February 5 to February 9, 2024 in Accra.
And the Africa Games is almost upon us. African Cup of Nations also upon us. And also, we have a new show called AFCON today. And when the AFCON starts, we'll also be introducing to you another special show which will be dedicated to talking about the African Cup of Nations. And today, you can join us on Joy Prime and also on Joy News as we bring you AFCON today. We appreciate your time with us this morning. The AM show continues right after this.
Welcome back on the AM show. In the course of this week, we've contemplated different areas of our national life where we'd like government to throw the spotlight, where we'd like government to focus and make our lives better. We started by talking about that section that takes care of, or, on which everything else is leveraged, the economy. We've also spoken about sanitation. We've contemplated education. Today, we contemplate health and agriculture, but we start from the health standpoint. A whole lot to contemplate, especially with hospitals in certain areas where you cannot even get paracetamol, the most basic health commodities. Well, we start off that discussion today looking at what government should be focusing on in the course of 2024. Joining us for a conversation, we have Dr. Kwame Sarpong Esiedu, a CDD fellow on health. He joins the conversation. Later, we'll also have Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng, Bono East Director of Health, later joining the conversation. But let me say a very good morning to Dr. Kwame Sarpong Esiedu. Good morning, sir. Hello,
good morning,
Doc.
Raymond. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I wish the volume were a bit better.
Is it better?
It is. It is. Thank you so much, sir. And Happy New Year. I think that's in order.
Same to you.
If I asked you to reflect on 2023 health-wise and maybe give your scorecard for this administration in terms of health, what would you say?
Well, I would say that 2023 wasn't eventful. And I say that because we obviously had an eventful 2020, 2021, and less so 2022, thanks to the COVID pandemic. So 2023 wasn't eventful. But it was also marked by some stark realities. If you remember, it was in 2023 that we had the vaccine shortages and all those things. And we also had the issues around...
You're talking about the childhood vaccine shortages.
Yes. And we also had the issues around the renal units and large conversations around dialysis and other things. We had conversations around the National Health Insurance Scheme and the fact that their fund flows were limited. So you would say that the realities of our health system, what actually underpins our health system to run properly, were put under the spotlight in 2023. And often it wasn't brilliant, but the underlying factor for all the things that came under the spotlight cannot really be attributed to health on its own without talking about the financial, underpinning that drives healthcare. So for me, that is how I'll summarize 2023, that there were issues in health, but they could all be traced back to financing.
I see. And what would your score then be for this administration, looking at these lapses that you speak of?
Well, if you talk about scoring them, I would say that it was average. I wouldn't say that there was anything that was marked. And I'm scoring them average on the basis that we are coming out of 2020, 2021, and 2022. And I'm also looking at it from the standpoint that if you look critically, there's nothing that really stands out. You can talk about the issues around the fact that Agenda 111 was started, how far did it get, is it moving as quickly as it is, were the 18 months target that were set initially met. And so if you want to go into all those things and you go on and on and on, you tend to realize that no, you cannot give anything above 50%. Because, I mean, it's difficult to tell me to score a health system that has capped almost 85% of the inflows that goes to the National Health Service and moved it into the consolidated fund when we have laws that stipulate that money should go to the National Health Insurance Fund directly. You cannot expect me to score it any higher than 50%.
Now, there has also been the issue of hospital facilities, yes, that cannot even offer you paracetamol, for which reason in some places like in the Sisala West constituency, people would cross over into Burkina Faso. And it's not just there. In many different parts of the country, you wouldn't even get paracetamol. In other instances, They stock these, but they are unwilling to let go of them because of the delay in payments by the National Health Insurance Authority, as the claims have been made time and again. Then we can talk about the La General Hospital brought down, still not built. In recent times, there has been talk about some work ongoing there, but this is the twilight of this administration after it had been pulled down how many years ago? 2.5, 3 years ago? So there are all of those to look at as well. You mentioned the renal department at Kolebu, among others. When you look at that picture, what do you feel we could do better with in terms of 2024? What should our approach be to health?
Well, you see, the Ghana Health Service with the Global Fund and others did an audit of our health system. And I'm quite sure you saw the audit, which came out towards the latter part of 2023, which said only 5% of our consultation rooms, for example, had a full complement of consultation facilities. And for me, that is a worry, which means that it is highly likely that if you went into any of the 95% other consultation rooms in public hospitals, a misdiagnosis could occur because they don't have the full complement, not because the health professionals are incompetent, but because the tools of work are not available. So you ask me this question, and then you ask me about 2024. You see, one thing we shouldn't run away from, and that is why I underpinned everything to money, is the fact that the health system, whether it's the health leadership, whether it's the technocrats, cannot do anything if they do not have the financial backing. So we need to find out first how much money has been put into the budget for 2024 to fund health. That's a key question. And so that tells you what is the thinking of government. And I've got the approval document from the Health Select Committee. I don't know if you have it, but do you realize that in 2024, the whole financial year, what was approved for, for health is 15,577,237,278 Ghana cedis. That was what was approved. If you divide that, because when you see a lot of money like that, you would say that, well, it's a lot of money because almost 15.6 billion is a lot of money. But to get the real impact that that money can make, you have to put it into a quantifiable sum. How much money is spent per person per year by this government, or how much is the government intending to spend per person per year in health? If you look at our projected growth rate of about 2.1% per annum, as based on the statistical service, and you do the numbers, you realize that the government has committed to spend about $37 to $38 per person per year on every Ghanaian. That's all the government is committing to spend. That includes any inflows that would come out of NHIS. It includes any capital expenditure that would go into building new hospitals. It includes things that would be used to buy new equipment from these consultation rooms. And to put that in context, if you look at Ghana's global health expenditure per capita, which has been dropping since 2020, we were at around $71 last year. Out of that, the government was contributing just around $30. The private sector, which means out of pocket, you are paying out of your pocket, even though there's a health insurance scheme, was contributing 50% of that sum. So they were contributing about $36 of that sum. The remainder was being contributed by our development partners. If you look at the fact that in the 2020 budget, when the government was committed about $29, $30, what was actually approved for the government to spend was about $42 per person per year. So you have to realize that what is approved is not the same as what is dispersed.
Right.
You need to understand that of this $37, $38 per person per year, the government is going to end up spending around $26, $27. What does that mean? It means that citizens would continually have to pay more to procure health. So our health expenditure, the 50% component that is paid by citizens, is likely to go up. because the government is not paying up. And you then have to look at it and say, in a country where we have committed to deliver universal health coverage by 2030, because this is something we signed up in 2015 to do. And what does universal health coverage mean? It means that you deliver healthcare to the individual free at the point of use. It doesn't mean the healthcare is not paid for, but what it means is that finance should not be a constraint when you go to access healthcare. So in countries that are planning to achieve universal health coverage by 2020, you realize that the percentage of their health expenditure per capita that is contributed by the private sector out of pocket is dropping. Ghana's is going up, and is going to go up again in 2024 based on the budget itself. So for me, that paints a gray picture in a country where spending ability of the citizens is poor. It paints a gray picture, and it's something that the government needs to relook at. And one way of relooking at it is to take off the cap on the NHIS funds. And for me, it's a key thing. But the question is, if the government takes off the cap, there will be a hole in the consolidated fund. How do they fill it? And so it's unlikely they're going to do it. So I'd say citizens must just brace themselves for a slight hike in what they pay out of pocket for their healthcare.
Wow. So citizens should brace themselves for a hike in what they pay for. Already we've seen this. Last year I had so many instances. People first complaining that the health insurance card was not delivering much and that they were paying more and more, especially in private facilities and even in public ones. And you're saying we should brace ourselves for more. What does this add to the picture? Just to give another compliment, and I forgot. When you see those, I've forgotten the proper name for those overhead lights used for surgery and the rest. There are places without them, which have been without them for a long time. Sometimes people have to use phones and their lights to perform surgery, like we've seen in some areas, not just rural areas. And that's not to say it is okay in the rural areas. But what is your thinking, Dr. Esiedu, as we wrap, on the very quick migration of Ghanaian health workers to other countries, especially the UK, Canada, the US, Australia, among other places? The numbers have been growing. I remember, I think it was the first quarter of either 2022 or 2023, 3,000 of our nurses had left, and the flow has continued. Now, some have proposed that we could go the way of the Filipino or the Philippine example, where they actually allow a quota of their health workers to go abroad. I think it is Professor Peter Quote of ISSA, to go abroad, and then they ensure that they send remittances back to the country. So it's a sort of arrangement, and then they are bound to send some remittances or pay certain fees. Do you think that could work in Ghana's case, or are we sitting on a ticking time bomb?
You see, I've looked at the Filipino model, and the Filipino model is similar to the model that you have in Cuba. In fact, that health as a revenue driver was first started in Cuba, ironically, in a communist country. And so for a long time, if you look at the successful Brazilian universal health coverage model that a lot of people tout, you'd realize that a lot of the doctors that went in there were Cuban trained. For you to do that, you have to overtrain. What do you mean by overtrain? You know the WHO has health professionals to population ratios.
Right.
So you need to have a health professional to population ratio that is higher than your country's requirement. So you have a surplus. You cannot export something you don't have. If you did that, then you're going to go into what happened to China when they had the cultural revolution, when they were sending grain abroad while people were starving in their country. That you cannot do. So yes, on paper, it is a plausible way to go. Plausible because you can make up your mind to overtrain just to export. We are not doing that. So that strategy is untenable at the moment. It's not that it's not feasible, but it's untenable at the moment because our health professional to population ratios are woefully inadequate. I can give you a few examples, and you realize that they are woefully inadequate. So for me, if you want to do these things, then we have to start planning. And without planning, we cannot do that.
Any final words for us, Doc, before you take leave of us?
You see, I am looking, my final word would be again in finance and planning. If you look at the same approval document that Parliament, the funds approved for health, if you look at the funds approved for Agenda 111, the monitoring committee of Agenda 111 are saying that they need about $1.4 billion to complete the project. What was approved in the budget is about the equivalent of 1.3 million cedis, or just around 200 million. So there's a deficit of 1.2 billion projects. And we know that we are under an IMF program. So sometimes you read official government documents and you are left wondering, why are we toying with healthcare? Based on that, there's absolutely no way those Agenda 111 projects are going to be finished because no money has been put away for them. And the documents are there, Raymond. I can share them with you, and you would see what has been approved. And it's worrying. It gives an impression that we are not serious when it comes to healthcare. And all we are probably going to see this year is health being used as a boat driver, with the government trying to commission some of these very visible projects just to show that they have delivered some Agenda 111, while the main problems in the health system remain unfixed. And for me, if we allow that to happen, that would be unfortunate. So that would be my parting word.
Thank you, Dr. Kwame Sarpong, for your time with us this morning. We know you're on a time leash. Thank you for having joined us. Dr. Kwame Sarpong is a CDD Fellow on Health. Let's now continue the conversation on health by roping in Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng. He is the Bono East Director of Health. He joins the conversation as well. Dr. Adomako-Boateng, a very good morning to you. Happy New Year.
Many happy returns to you. I heard Kwame calling you Raymond. I don't know when that happened. You have gotten another extra day.
I was going to let that slide. You had to go there. I was going to let that slide, and you had to go there. Anyway, it happens from time to time. There will be a bit of a switcheroo with your name, but unless it becomes rampant, you don't really, go for it. But good to have you, and good to start the conversation on a light note. But for you, coming to you on health, what would be your assessment of the year 2023 in health? And if you could score, I know where you are as a director of health. The word I'm looking for is not coming, but it's a tricky position, and you must watch your words. But if you assessed the year 2023 health-wise, what would you say? And would you be able to score the health system on a scale of 1 to 10 in the past year?
Okay, we actually have an objective way of scoring when it comes to Ministry of Health and Ghana Health Service. We use what we call the holistic assessment, and which we do by way of peer review. The 16 regions, we will go to each other and peer review ourselves. So the holistic assessment really is a measure that Ghana Health Service we do. But if I want to give my judgment observation, looking at the context from where we are coming from, one specific one would be when the year began, we were all afraid when most of our human resource were leaving. But if you really look at some of the indicators across, we were spared. It's not that bad as we're looking at. For example, if you come to Greece, we always have our figures that I think as we go on, we will come to them. The basic one that you will look at, you have to look at maternal mortality. You have to look at the perinatal mortality. You have to look at the OPD.
Hello, Doc. All right, so we'll try to get Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng.
These are the measures that we use.
All right, Doc.
Ourselves.
Doc, we lost you for about 20 seconds. So if you could just go back, we lost you. briefly.
Yes. So we have an objective way that we do it. As I said, for the holistic assessment, we have three main objectives: objective 1, objective 2, objective 3. And in that, all the other discussions that we may be having with SEDU, they are captured in that. So one of them that we really look at, you look at the nurses to population ratio, you look at the equity index, you look at doctors to population ratio, you look at the equity index there. And these will give you an idea of how you did performance. I think I will be biased if you want me to score for Bunis and Ghana. For Bunis, I will say that we got 7/10. As they say, nobody will point the left hand to the mother's house. I think that's what I would do.
All right, but you've had your own challenges, and we'll get to your region as well. So generally, though, I still want a general assessment. Dr. Kwame Sarpong Asiedu gave a score of 50% or 5/10. What would be your general score? Looking at all the areas, I mean, there's infant mortality, maternal mortality, general mortality, services at hospital facilities, public and private. I mean, so many things in there. The lack of facilities, we heard about the renal department, the shortage of vaccines for children, among others. Where does that leave us, really? If you had to objectively score, what would you give?
Yes. Before I score, Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, before normally we score on, we have a ruler like up to 5 that we score. So it's either 3/5, 4/5. But even if you look at the inputs that we have just enumerated, one of them is the vaccines, one of them is the human resource. At the end of the day, you look at the output or the outcome, which is reflected in, let's see, children having the vaccine preventable diseases, diarrhea diseases, the top OPD, and then you look at the OPD per capita. I would give ourselves 3/5. That is the ruler that normally we use. So I will give ourselves 3/5. Some regions will be better, some will be lower, but averagely, I will give 3/5.
Okay, so 3/5 would be 60%. Or 6/10. So that's your score. Hello, Doc.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hello, Ben.
Yes, I said 3/5 is the same as 6/10 or 60%.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's now focus.
That's on the average.
Okay, all right. So Dr. Kwame Sarpong Asiedu 5/10 and you 6/10. Let's look now at some other aspects of our health situation and everything in between. You heard Dr. Kwame Sarpong Asiedu also complain about what amount was budgeted and even what has been disbursed as far as the health ministry is concerned. Is that a consideration? Is that a concern for you? How much we're pumping into health? Of course, we're in the grips of an IMF sponsored program, but are we doing enough? Are we committing enough resources to health? I'm sure you also heard him basically suggest that with what we're committing to health, there's no way, so to speak, we can even complete Agenda 111. What's your reflection on that? Hello, Doc. Are you with me?
When it comes to those political decisions, I think I'll be the wrong person to be answering. When we start going to Agenda 1.
All right, Doc, I think maybe we may have to get you on the phone. I don't know why the connection is so patchy this morning, but we may try to get you on phone, or if the virtual connection still works, we'll try to get you back. But I interacted, and I see him still, watching along with us, Dr. Kwame Sarpong Asiedu. A short while ago, of course, he had to knock off because there were other things he had to attend to. But we still have Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng, the Bono East Director of Health, with us. The connection is not too good, so we're going to try to find out whether we can maintain him on Zoom or connect with him via phone so we can continue the conversation from there. But it is all about health, your health, my health, the country's health. Without a healthy population, we can't work. We can't boost the economy. We can't do what must be done. So we're going to try one more time to get Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng. If it doesn't work this time, we'll go on the phone. Doc, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, I can. I can hear you, Ben.
Okay, all right. Now that we have you back, you can go to the point you were making about Agenda 111. And I only brought that up because you are in the health system. But what's your take? Okay, it doesn't look like...
Hello?
Yes, Doc. Did you get the question?
Not really, Ben. I'm having a lot of challenges over here from King Tampo.
I know. And I'm sorry about that. I'm merely saying, go ahead. You were talking about Agenda 111. Please go ahead. I don't think Doc can hear me well. So we'll just try to get him on phone, especially because of where he finds himself. The connection may not be the very best. So we'll get Doc on phone and take it from there. Still to come, some of the matters I'm going to be discussing with him, just as I discussed with Dr. Kwame Sarpong Esiedu. Doc, can you hear me now?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You can go ahead. You were talking about Agenda 111. You can go ahead.
When it comes to Agenda 111, I think the DJ and the team and then the Minister of Health will be in the position to talk about that. So that one, I wouldn't want to comment on that issue. But I don't know which other question you were asking that I can really address.
Well, I spoke about Agenda 111 and the feasibility. I was talking about the resources being allocated to health and how it may not necessarily be enough, even considering Agenda 111 and shoring up our health under an IMF program, as suggested by Dr. Kwame Sarpong Esiedu. I was just roping you into that conversation. Do you feel enough resources are being pumped into health?
Ben, that question I think is for the policymakers and the headquarters to really.
Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng, from where you sit, you know very well whether resources are enough or not. I mean, parrying it to the health authorities, unless you say something or unless you think you are getting enough, you can say that as well if you think you're getting enough.
Realistically, if you want to look at Bunuis, where we find ourselves, we are looking at, and for here, I believe a lot of people will listen to the context from where we are coming from. If you look at Bunuis, you look at our districts, which is about 11 of them. About 80% of us in Bunuis is a rural population. And so if you look at we call some places far east, you are talking about Sine East, you are talking about Sine West, you are talking about Kru East, Kru West. If you look at those dimensions, what we need in Bunuis, it will surprise you, is different from what the discussion that we are having. If you come to us, if you ask me what I need as a regional director of health in Bunuis, I'll be talking about 1, my chief's compounds, and 2, I'll be talking about my health centers. Because once you come here and you look at how the population is sparse, especially in that communities, those communities, the distances between communities that you have to transfer and to go for, then you see that when we are talking about universal health coverage, there is no one size fits all. And that is what I will want to communicate to you that, look, if you really want me to answer you that question, and the things that we in Bunuis we are looking for, it will be different from maybe the discussion that we are having right now. And that's why I don't want us to even drag there, because I can go in and match and tell you some of the things that we really need when it comes to universal health coverage and then health for all. And you talk about what? Quality access. Quality access. So if you ask me from where I'm sitting, maybe Kumasi Accra will be different, but from where I'm sitting, if you bring Agenda 11 straight, then it will be a different discussion that we will have to go in.
Let me ask you, though, I mean, these are some of the necessities that have come up in other regions. When you look at defibrillators, for example, you look at dialysis machines, you look at incubators. How many of them do you have in your region? I mean, do you have a fair assessment? If you don't have the actual numbers, it's fine. But are you aware of how many there are, or if there are none at all?
Okay, so I believe context really matters. You remember when I came to the studio, I met Erasmus and the other, and this dialysis issue came, and we all discussing about it.
Erastus.
Yes, right. Erastus. You see, context really is the case. Ben, you remember when COVID-19 came? And normally when we are discussing, it should be context and specific things that we should be discussing. You remember when COVID-19 came, and all of us were talking about ventilators. Oh, everywhere you go, do you have ventilators? Do you have that? Do you have that? In the end, the issue is not about what you have or where it is, but the issue is how you are able to mobilize and then operationally use them when the need is. Look, if I give you the top 10 OPD cases and deaths in Bunu East, you see that the discussion will be entirely different. And so if you ask Bunu East, what do we have in terms of defibrillators and all those, the question that I will say is that we have one dialysis at Techiman, and that
one serves the entire region.
Yes.
Just humor me. What is the population of the Bunu East region? I don't have the details right here, so I'll ask you. What is the average population of the Bunu East region?
The population is almost 1.2 million.
So one dialysis machine to, of course, not 1.2 million, because not all of them will need it, but to cater for a population that large. Okay, all right. And then incubators?
Almost every hospital is having an incubator. And it's really coming in. For example, we had a team coming to visit Kintampo North Hospital. And I will mention their names, where we went to their emergency center. And they were asking, where did we get some of these things from? We are even having infusion pumps in some of our facilities. If you go to Atebubu Amantin Kintampo, with the support from UNICEF,
Doc, we've lost
and all others. They are having contact.
You can go ahead, Doc, if you can hear me.
Hello.
You can go ahead, Doc. I can hear you now.
So, in terms of incubators, we every hospital in Bunu East, where we have hospital, Atebubu is having one. Kintampo North Municipal Hospital is having one. Jema.
Doc, we shall reach you on phone. I think that will be the best option. My next question to him was going to be how many of these were provided by government or through our health system, and how many, he just mentioned UNICEF, had been brought in from the goodwill or courtesy of the goodwill of international organizations, NGOs, and maybe people of goodwill. That also paints a certain picture, because we want to know how much our health system on its own is contributing to these. Of course, he may say what he did about defibrillators and maybe even dialysis machines. But for incubators, I mean, everywhere there are preterm babies born, and they will need some of these facilities. What happens to them? Of course, it's a broader conversation, but we're also focusing on the Bono East region, which is his region. Doc, welcome back. You're on phone now. I think it should be clearer. You were making a point.
Something about utilization. Let me give you a classical example, especially when people start to lump numbers together and see that one as the ultimate thing that is needed. You can go to a hospital and say, we don't have a CT scan. And it can be news. Go to Guinea, they have only 2 or 3 CT scans, or go to Ghana. But is that really what we need as a country? Is that really what Guinea need? And when do you really need the CT scan as compared to these? All these are discussions that should be tailored in terms of context. When you come to me as Guinea, my challenge basically will be how do I maximize the referral system so that I'll be able to really connect as to when this person or that patient will be able to be moved from there to the other issue. And that is one. And then secondly, if you come to me, for the first time last year, we had about 26 doctors coming to Ghana Health Service. That was for the first time. But the challenge that we had, for example, in Guinea, if you go to a district, like you go to Akebubu, Amantin, you go to Puri, and there is no accommodation for this doctor and the family to come there. That is what I will look. And then you get a lot of nurses coming to your facility or coming to a district where all the landladies and landlords will start increasing the amount that these nurses and doctors who are coming to support them. So you see the context then becomes different in the level of care that you are really looking at. And until we begin to really disaggregate and talk about these issues, about what is needed at A and B, and then we start talking about numbers, that has been my challenge when we talk about numbers. But it's all dynamic, look. And it's the hope on us as managers to begin to look at this context and operate in as much.
All right, I was just... Give me a straightforward answer if you can. You spoke about the incubators and the fact that every hospital has one. But you also made mention of UNICEF. How many of these were provided by outside or external organizations? So I'm talking about NGOs, IGOs, people of goodwill, rather than the health system. Of course, you know why I'm posing that question.
Okay, so, and Ben, when it comes to this issue, it's about when you talk about health, and you know, even when you give the car without the permission of the Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, all the other partners that we talk about, they can never operate in your country. So normally when we are discussing, almost everybody is supported. So when we are supporting all these, and when they give us, it comes through headquarters once again. We have motorbikes, we have ones who all come in, it comes through headquarters. But that data, I will have to promise you that as we are speaking now, but I will definitely get it at the end of the day and let you have it, so that we can break it down, which came from this place, which came from that place, and which came from that place.
All right, thank you. I'm grateful for that. Now let's look at another crucial issue when it comes to our health. The HIV prevalence. Last year, maybe some 2 or 3 times, I hosted the head of the Ghana AIDS Commission coming through. We spoke extensively about the prevalence of HIV and AIDS and how, you know, there were these drives, even self-test kits to get people tested, among others. It appears it's on the rise again. It's been on the rise for a while. We've taken our eye off the ball. The campaigns have not really been there, or they've not been effective. And the numbers have shot up, including especially the over 100,000 who have it but do not even know and could be spreading it without knowing that they have it. In your region, the prevalence rate is even more stark. 4.8. which is higher than the national average of 2.8. My question is, when you look at that segment of our health, where have we got it right? Where are we getting it wrong? What would you like to see moving forward, generally, but also in your region, which has a pretty high concentration or prevalence rate?
So, thank you. So the data that we are discussing now, I think, is the 2021, and we are still waiting for 2021, 2022, where they really disaggregated the data in terms of the size. So if you look at Ghanaians, we are doing well when it comes to the rural prevalence. So if you look at the graph that we are discussing, Ghanaians is one of the best and the safest place to be when we are in the rural area when it comes to HIV. We are having a prevalence of 0.6, which is way better than all the other rural sites in the country. Our challenge, as you rightly said.
Wait, what the figure you gave, is that from 2020 or the current?
Yes, the one we are discussing, basically.
Okay.
Yes, so if you look at that, they discuss those figures in terms of a rural and then urban. So what you quoted is the urban.
Right.
So normally you have to look at all these contexts that we are discussing. So when it comes to the rural issues, Ghanaians is doing marvelously well. But as you rightly said, the challenge has been the urban setting, where we have high figures. But these high figures are not good things that we have to boost up. Where Tetman and Kranza, in fact, one of us are leading. But then the question is, why should a rural be doing well and then the urban is not doing well? I mean, the dynamic, as you know, is if you look at Tetman, if you look at Kranza, which kind of are train cities, and a lot of activities going on. Tetman is the central part of almost every person going to south or north will pass through Tetman and all these other issues. But then why are we not doing well? So that is what I think rightly you said. The focus and in the way that we were going in tackling the issue really came down a bit when we moved from the agency or the pandemic meter. And the self-testing issue is what we will have to look at. If you have and you don't know you have it, that is a different issue. So at the campaign, and we are believing that 2021, 2022, it should be because this year, last year, TB and HIV were on our radar. We did massive campaigns and all these. So we are looking at the next coming survey for us to do well. But then risky behavior are things that you can look at. These are very powerful commercial areas. People coming from sub-region even to Tetman, and now people moving from Tetman going to stay in Kranza. Which are not actually imaging. You have a lot of commercial activities coming on. So as you rightly said, we have to really increase our campaign, and especially self-testing, and then telling people that it's important that you know your status. Once you know your status, you yourself, you prevent getting other issues, which is good for you. If you don't know your status and you think that you don't have HIV, when it's complicated with other issues, you become a double and at times even triple burden. These are things that we are going to communicate especially to people. But then when it comes to HIV, you know the key population that we are looking at, and the drive is preventing mothers from giving to babies, which we are doing very well. These are things that we will have to hammer on very well, and also have a way of getting other people passing through, so that when they are passing through, we have a way that people can protect themselves very well.
Now, do you have access to the self-test kits? I'm talking about the oral and the blood-based test kits. Do you have access to them in the Bono East region?
Yes. I mean, nationally, it's a program issue where they allocate based on population, as we said. So from where we don't have shortage, as we are speaking now. But then the question is the population aware? That is another thing.
That's a question I should throw back to you.
Yes. That is what we will have
and are they using them? Are they patronizing them?
Yes, that is what we are going to look at. If you ask me, to give you an honest answer, what we have to move to do is that is the population really aware when it comes to this issue, when it comes to these intervention and tools, and for them to really have them. I think that will be our drive this year, 2024 drive.
What specifically are you going to do as a regional directorate of health?
We are this year. Our target is involving the community. What we are really going to drive for 2024 is how we will mobilize the community health, SIP zone, SIP compound, and more importantly, the network of practice as a very flagship intervention that we are going to. Because everybody lives in a community, no matter where. And these are low-hanging fruits. We have our health workers already there that can get them. And the reason why I am saying that is that, look, at times, because at the end of the day, we all go back to our houses. When we finish our work, we go to our community. So if we can empower the community, and we have a way of doing that, the community information system, we have churches, we have mosques, we have traditional leaders, authorities who are part of that. That will be our channel that we are going to do. And not even only that, we are also even thinking about, when we come to outbreak investigation, how we are going to involve the community. And a case in hand is that, for example, you are at a hospital, somebody comes to your hospital, and you see that this woman is having, let's say, a viral hemorrhagic fever or Marburg hemorrhagic one, and then you tell this woman that because of this, we are not going to let you go to the house. The woman just came to the hospital to go and buy bread to go and feed the family. So how do we also get the community earlier so that we also stimulate within the community all these emergencies so that when it comes, they won't tell us that we want to use them for money. So this year, 2024, doing it is going to go into the community, involving the community. Do they really understand? Do they really get what we are talking about? And what do they want us to do for? So this is what we are going to channel through the sub-district, the SIP compound. And I think that next year, God willing, I'll be able to give you the feedback. Or even the mid-year, I'll be able to give you the feedback how far we've been able to start this.
All right, Doc, to conclude the conversation, I want you now to give us, in the next few minutes, your expectations of government, okay, in terms of health in your region and beyond. I'm looking at things like the National Health Insurance Scheme. How can it be made better to ensure that people get the health care they require? There have been claims a lot of the time that people go to health facilities and they get the bare bones of health care with health insurance, and the rest of the bills they have to foot. Here in Accra, some hospitals have been pointed to time and again. I cannot put the names out there, but people are saying that things that supposedly, even for maternal care, they shouldn't be charged for, they are getting charged for them. How do you think NHIS can fare better? There's been the shortage of vaccines for children. How do you think that can be forestalled? There are dilapidated health structures. You spoke about CHIPS compounds. Do you have any in your region? What are your expectations in that regard? Generally, what would be your expectations on the standpoint of health in 2024 from the standpoint of the Ministry of Health and government by extension?
Thank you, Ben, for giving me this opportunity. I will, first of all, want to communicate to the people of Ghana and talk to them what they have control. Then I'll come to the government. So, one, you have control on your ability to do exercise. It's the most effective tool. And that one is not under anybody's control. So, 2024, let's exercise. Two, your diet.
Let's exercise. Okay.
Your diet. Look, you have control over what you eat when you eat. Drinking. You have control over what you drink, how much you drink. Let's look at all these things. Sedentary lifestyle. I want to plead with people.
So let's break it down. When you say sedentary lifestyle, I mean, so you are sitting for long hours.
Long hours. No, you can go to market by walking, but you want to sit in your car. And then tie into exercise wherever you live in Ghana. you can do exercise, even in your compound house. Let's look at these things. The reason why I am saying that, and then those people who are smoking, the reason why I am saying that is that, look, no matter the situation around you, you need to be healthy to really enjoy what I'm going to talk about. And once you have that health, and which is under your control, salt, too much salt is not good for anybody. The lesser salt you take, you exhibit, the less likely of you having a high blood pressure. Too much sugar doesn't do anything to any of us. All these we have control. Please, at the end of this year, if you're a woman, go and examine your breast. Go and examine your breast. Cervical screening is there for you. Men, women, let's check our BP and our sugar. Let's check them. These are under your control. These are things that you can even walk into a health center and they will check without charging you. These are what we call wellness clinics. These are all the things that we have to do to support. Know your BP. Take a notebook and write your BP and your sugar and all this to the government. And then this to my health workers. Kudos to what we have been doing. Look, if all of us were to leave Ghana, it would be a different story. But virtue of me deciding to stay, I think that is what we are doing. Let's continue to do that. And then here I'll be biased because I am one of the people in the newly created region. 6 of us, Oti, Green, Savannah, Northeast, Western North, and Ahafo. Please, give special care to us. We are new. We are new region. So everything that the government will think about in terms of supporting the traditional things, we should double it for us. One of the things that I would say is that, for example, if you come to Blue, give us 2 new pickups for our regional medical stores. Because what we saw as a region was that the drug issue, and I'll come to National Health Insurance, it's a kind of vicious cycle that we will have to address. And one of them is our ability for us to go and supervise and monitor the distant areas. Then, the work that we do as managers is not to sit at the office. It's important we go and inspect what the people are supposed to do. For the medical source, that is the plea for me, for all the newly created. And please give us 2 of them. The last one I will end, and this has been a banner on my heart. The way that we have been addressing the health care workers. Let's tie, so if especially we take the census, and the census is telling us that these are the 10 most deprived districts in the country. It has made the work of the government clear. Tie salaries of health workers to that district and not to a particular group. So you can tie people who are going to go to the island community, Akodokro in Sene East, to Kodokro East, and not to Dr. Fred Adomako, so that mass doing things on a massive scale, which is not sustainable, will be addressed. Let's pragmatically see how we can tie these most deprived areas, or if there's a different thing, on a government agenda, so that it will attract people to go. We are in the country, people want to stay in Accra, people want to stay in Kumasi. In fact, when you come to Buni, people still want to stay at Setiman, Kintampo, and in Kwanzaa, and no good. So it's a human thing. So how can we pull them there? This is one of the things that we can decide. Every region, let's look at 1, 2, 3 deprived districts and tie salaries to the district and not to the person. And one thing that I will see this year, look for something that you dream of doing. I'm not saying you are going to buy a build 3-story building, you can, or buy Lincoln Navigator. No. Think about something like you want to swim, you want to do something, and tie yourself as an objective. something that you can achieve, and let that be the hope for you in 2024. And as you go enough, you work towards that. And I believe that together you'll be able to make it.
Thank you very much, Doc, for joining the conversation. To cap it all off, let me bring in Isaac Ampoma. He is the Greater Accra Regional Vice Chair, Coalition of NGOs in Health, and CEO of Concerned Health Education Project. Thank you, Ms. Ampoma, for joining the conversation. Hello, Isaac. Do we have Isaac Ampoma with us? Okay, I can hear you in bits and pieces. I think there's a problem with the connection. Hello? Hello, Isaac Ampoma. Can you hear me? All right, so we'll try and get him on the phone as we cap off the conversation. We'd also, of course, like to have a bit of a taste of what we can expect from the Greater Accra region, and especially with his being the regional vice chair for the Coalition of NGOs in Health, what his take is on the health care system and what their expectations would be in a year like this one, 2024. We'll work the phone lines to get him and cap off the conversation from that angle. Of course, our health is our wealth as a nation, and we cannot do without it. As healthy as our population is, will also impact our wealth, our productivity as a people. And it's not something we can throw under the bus or sweep under the carpet. So we're going to try to get Isaac Ampoma on the phone line. Hopefully we can do that quickly so that we can cap off the conversation on health and move on to other matters. He is the Greater Accra Regional Vice Chair, Coalition of NGOs in Health. He is also the CEO for Concerned Health Education Project. Hopefully we can get him on the line in just a little bit and take it from there. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't appear we can reach Isaac Ampoma, so we'll cap off the conversation here. Up next, we're focusing on agriculture. We're going to be talking about that space. We've been tackling them bit by bit. A few days ago, the economy and sanitation. Yesterday, education and more. And now, of course, we've focused on health. We're also going to be focusing on agriculture moving forward. We also have an update coming up, of course, in respect of that leaked IGP tape and some perspectives that have been put out by some entities concerning whether the IGP has been cleared and the others have not been cleared and whatever. We'll bring you the scoop on that as well later on the AM show. We'll be back. Well, welcome back on the AM show. As announced, before we go hard on talking agriculture, let's also look at this leaked IGP tape. Well, the committee's report has also leaked. I guess everything about it is leaking. But there has been some talk of that in the media. And we have our own man, Samuel Mbura, who has been on that beat. He was in Parliament following the committee's work. He joins me in the studio because the vice chair of that committee also has a take suggesting that what is out there could very well be, well, by and large, what we have seen, leaked. But Samuel Mbura joins the conversation. Mr. Mbura, good to have you on the show.
Good morning, my brother. This is the first time we are meeting for the year 2024.
Oh, how do you say it?
Yeah, so in my language, you say Yompale, meaning Happy Yompale, Happy New Year.
Yompale.
Yeah.
Okay, how would I respond?
Then you now respond with your wish. Maybe next year by this time we have longer life, we have good health, we have enough money.
Yeah, so say that in your language.
Oh, you know one of my time to tell vom ligri la sumason.
Oh.
That, yeah. Meaning next year by this time we have good health, we have strength, we have money. to enjoy life. Yeah.
I heard something akin to tatale. You got me thinking of beans, but I know it's not. that's just on a lighter note.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the committee's work. Yeah. And there was this other entity, a media entity that put out, especially since yesterday, a leaked report.
Yeah.
And then it got, I'm on some platforms and the conversations there were pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Walk us through what has happened so far and what we are hearing now from the vice chair of that committee.
All right, so what we are discussing this morning is not just based on the news circulating, but per our own sources, what the committee has put together so far. We know very well that 3 months ago, the committee had to suspend the interrogation with the witnesses and all those who matter in this case and go into their own drafting of the reports and all that. So before Parliament went on recess, there was a final meeting that they met that the clerks actually gave them a draft report. In that draft report, there were recommendations by the committee members that issues have been captured in the report that were not agreed by the committee, so they should expunge them. So on the back of this particular statement or this draft report, we know got leaked. And again, we are discussing it on the basis that our sources are telling us that what is out there is not substantially different from what has been captured in the committee's report. So let me just give you a recap. We know very well that this particular committee that was set up, the ad hoc committee, was to, one, look at the plot, the conspiracy by certain high-ranking police officers to remove the IGP, whether that was actually the situation or not. The second one had to do with the authenticity of the contents of the leaked audio tape, which Bugri Nabu first brought out, and then subsequently other tapes came up. The contents of the leaked audio tape revealing the presence of partisan leadership in the Ghana Police Service. How is that going to play out, or how the veracity in that as well? So there was a purported rift between the current IGP and the officers of the Ghana Armed Forces. So these were some of the allegations in addition to the contents of the leaked audio tape, particularly the assertions of the said highly ranking police officers confirming entrenched politicization of the system, and the leaked audio tape uncovers a treasonable agenda to subvert the authenticity of the current IGP, as well as power of the President of the Republic, who is vested with the executive authority, power to appoint or remove any IGP or for the Ghana Police Service. So we know that the terms of reference of the committee was, one, to look at or ascertain the veracity or otherwise the leaked tape, to also, one, investigate the conspiracy to remove the current IGP, Dr. George Akufudan-Parry. The third one was to investigate any other matter contained in the radio recording that was heard. We heard some media outlets playing it. The other one was to make recommendations for reforms where necessary, and to make such other recommendations and consequential orders as the committee may deem appropriate. So they had to invite all the witnesses involved. We remember that Bugri Nabu was the first person to appear before the committee. He testified. We had COP Alex Mensah, who is now retired, going to Bekwai to contest as a parliamentary candidate for the NPP. We have George Asare, who is still a serving officer. One, Mr. JB, he is also with the forensic unit of the Ghana Police Service and the Criminal Investigations Department. So all these people appeared. These were the witnesses that appeared. Of course, the IGP himself. IGP himself appeared. And then National Security Minister, Honorable Albert Kandapa, appeared to testify. The reason he appeared was that, when the leaked tape came, the National Security also did their public reactions, also invited the witnesses to interrogate them. So they wanted to find out what their findings were. So when the Minister for National Security appeared before them, he only shared with them their findings. However, he didn't tender that in as evidence. He said it was a classified document. So if you say in security terms, something is classified, meaning it is not meant for public consumption. So he only went there to testify orally that, yes, this is what our findings are pointing to so far as this leaked tape is concerned. However, I cannot tender this in as an exhibit of evidence. So right now, there were evidences that the committee relied on, which had to do with the leaked tape, the first audio, and the additional second tape made available to the committee by Chief Bugri Nabu. The second one was testimonies of the witnesses who were interrogated by the committee, whom I just mentioned earlier. And then subsequently, the committee discharged them and then went into their own, writing of the report, observations, and scrutiny of these, the testimonies that were actually provided. So issues came up. Some of the issues actually came up that they had to deal with. And I'll just run you through that.
Please do.
Yeah, so the committee, one, having to do the conspiracy to remove the IGP. The information that we have, which we know, it is substantially not different from what is in the media space now, is that regarding the conspiracy to remove the IGP, the committee establishes a clear affirmative based on evidence that senior police officers, including COP Alex Mensah, Superintendent George Lesenda Asare, and Superintendent Eric Emmanuel Jebi conspired with Bugri Nabu to influence the president and replace the IGP for partisan interest. So in terms of the issues that the committee were to look into, so they have been able to establish that based on the testimonies that they have given. So the committee
what we gathered from the tape was that on the back of the interest of the MPP, this IGP should be ousted so that things can go in favor of the party. And this was on the back of, was it the Asin North? Or it was the one before that by-election?
It was the one before, because they were talking about the fact that see what happened there, and then the IGP wasn't working in favor of the MPP. That's why things went that way for them. So the other one was that the committee concludes that the conspiracy has the potential to undermine, just reference to what you are talking about, electoral system and the police used to police it and all that. So the committee concludes that this conspiracy has the potential to undermine the integrity of the 2024 general elections. Actions aimed at pointing a partisan IGP as revealed in the audio tapes threaten transparency, accountability, and neutrality in election security management, violating constitutional and international rights. So the main idea was for them to send someone who is aligned with the MPP so that they can have, they can have advantage in the 2024 election. So the committee in its issues indicated that this is a potential threat to national security as well as electoral, or capable of bringing electoral violence and a breach of international rights. The act also of conspiracy by the senior officers, including COP Alex Mensah, Superintendent George Lesenda Asare, and Superintendent Eric Emmanuel Jebi constitute professional misconduct. And they are making reference to some legal authorities. They are referring to the Police Service Act 1970, Act 350, and the Police Service Regulation 2012, CI 76. They say their actions conflict with constitutional duties, breach regulations, and bring disrepute to the police service. So in summary on the issues, the committee confirms the audio authenticity. The committee says that the audio as presented was authentic. It also establishes a conspiracy
but wait. There were two different versions. There was an extended version, so to speak.
Yes.
And the initial version. Which of them are they?
So they are relying
authenticating?
They are relying on the initial version that was, because the one that was given was the extended version of the initial one that was before the committee. Right. So, initially the objections were raised that, yes, we had conversations with him, but this is not the entire conversation we've had with Bugri Nabu. And that's how come Bugri Nabu supplied the committee with the full tape. And that is where they now continue their investigation. So in summary, the committee confirmed that the audio as presented by Bugri Nabu is authentic. It has established that there's a conspiracy to manipulate the IGP appointment for potential political gain, and also recognize the threat to the 2024 elections integrity, and declares professional misconduct by the involved senior officers. So
now we know that at least one of those officers, COP Mensah, has retired.
Exactly.
Is trying to become a lawmaker.
Exactly.
That paints an interesting picture, doesn't it?
That's the issue.
Because what then will be the consequences? I mean, on the back of this, it is not a court of law, right? But then the police service can take its own actions. I don't know what will pertain to someone who has retired from the service.
So there was a conversation. He himself, in an interview with Evans Mensah, which I produced, he was talking about, right now I'm out of the Ghana police service. The worst they can do to me is to take me to court for criminal prosecution, because the police cannot hold me against the disciplinary committee because I'm out of the service. I've hung my boots, I've given my uniform, everything to them. So the worst the police can do is to take him off his benefits, the retirement benefits and all that. But if there are criminal implications of the report, then they can take him to court and prosecute him based on that. So there were some facts that were actually established. So they said all 4 key witnesses, including Chief Bugri Nabu, 3 senior officers, confirmed the authenticity of their voices in the audio tape. They also say that the senior police officers conspired to remove the IGP, Dr. Akufo Dampare, based on unfounded political affiliations, aiming to replace him with COP George Alex Mensah. lobbying initiated by the police officers through Chief Bugri Nabu aimed at removing the current IGP. So basically, the committee has established the facts or the issues that were raised or what they said and the testimonies that they give that yes, there were intentions to conspire and remove the IGP. Yes, there were intentions to remove the IGP and replace him with someone who is partisan to achieve their main aim. That is the 2024 general election. So there have been some recommendations. If you wouldn't mind, I'll just run you through the recommendations not just what is limited to the media or that what has been published in the media, but what we have also gathered so far, even though we are waiting for the committee to officially report to the Speaker of Parliament, and the Speaker of Parliament will lay it before the plenary, then they can advance.
And you have had some interactions as well with members of the committee.
Exactly. So it is based on that we are having this conversation beyond the speculations out there. Yes, the committee has confirmed that what is out there is substantially not different from what they have recommended, with the exception that they made recommendations for the clerks who recorded the entire proceedings to expunge and then add certain findings to the report for them to finalize it. So the recommendations, per what we know, is that they are recommending further investigation and possible prosecution for perjury and professional misconduct of 3 senior officers involved in the conspiracy to remove the IGP. So they are proposing a review amendment of the constitutional and legislative provisions to secure the independence of the IGP's office. So they want the IGP's office to be different. The president should not be the one to decide, oh, I don't like your face, or maybe how you carried out this operation, I'm taking you out from the system. So this person should come in. So that's what the committee is recommending. They are suggesting they're aligning the terms and conditions of the IGP with the Justice of the Court of Appeal, and then with a non-renewable tenure after compulsory retirement at 60. So if you are Dampare, it's not 60 yet. So if it's the case that he has been appointed, meaning when he gets to 60 years that he can retire, but it shouldn't be the case that he can be taken off at any time. So there's also an advocacy that for specific grounds for the removal of the sitting IGP, emphasizing misbehavior, incompetence, or incapacity. So you can only remove him if he's incompetent, if he's misbehaving, or if he's not capable of managing the Ghana Police Service. And George Asare even commended IGP Akufo Dampare that, if he has not done anything at all, he has brought facelift to the Ghana Police Service. And I remember when Evans Mensah posed that question to him, then why would you want him removed? They say everyone has an interest. Everyone, it's not just limited to that, but at least this what he saw, that he wasn't capable, but regardless of that, he has been able to bring facelift to the Ghana Police Service. If possible, he should extend it to other police stations as well, as seen in the headquarters. So there's also a call for the enactment of the Code of Conduct for Public Officers Bill to address conflicts of interest. There's also an emphasis on the transparency in the deployment of security personnel for election security management and accountability for unprofessional conduct. The committee, per what we have gathered, is recommending continuous professional training for police personnel on legal, policy, and normative frameworks, collaborating with relevant stakeholders. And then they want an urgent establishment of an independent police complaint commission, what they call the IPCC, to replace the Police Professional Standard Bureau, what we call the PPSB, for enhanced accountability. So PPSB deals with internal disciplinary actions against police.
What used to be PIPS.
Exactly. So the last recommendation that we are learning is that they are rooting for the enforcement of existing provisions preventing the 7 police officers from engaging in activities leading into political controversy. We know very well, yes, you can do your covert politics. However, you will not be permitted to do it overtly. And even if the case that the system or the service is able to establish that you are in the service yet involved in a covert form of political activities, that is a grounds enough to take you off from the Ghana Police. So for now, that's the information that we have. We are waiting for the final report to be presented to the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumani Bagben. I'm told that before this month ends, the full report will be given to the Speaker of Parliament. But before then, you remember, before we went for the Christmas break, there was an invitation extended to the IGP to come to the Speaker. He had a meeting with the Speaker in Parliament on this same report. We spoke to the chairman of the committee, Atachia, who didn't want to reveal the details then. But we know that conversations are ongoing. There are also speculations out there that the report has been presented to the president, in which our sources indicate that no report has been presented to the president yet. it is, even if anything at all, it is the Speaker of Parliament that the committee is supposed to report to. Even the parties involved, because I've been speaking with the lawyers involved in this case, they are not, they have not been given any copy yet. They have not been given any report yet. They are waiting patiently for the full recommendations and the report by the committee. Then they can also take it from there.
Well, so those are the details we have as of now. Samuel Mbura, of course, joining me in the studio to elaborate. We've given you the icing on the cake. We've given you much more than is out there. This is not hearsay. This is from the word or the mouths of those who sat on that committee, which we can vouch for. Samuel Mbura, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Well, we proceed from here. We are now going to focus on agriculture and what we can expect or what we hope to see in that sector in the year 2024. That conversation right after the break. Thank you for staying. You can tell for the background, we're moving full steam ahead, talking now about agriculture in Ghana and the way forward in 2024. Joining us for a conversation, we have Bismarck Norte. He is Director of Communications, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. And we also have Edward Karawe, General Secretary, General Agriculture Workers Union, popularly known as GAU. Both of them join us for a conversation. We're going straight for the jugular, talking about how we fared in 2023, what we can do better in 2024. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning and Happy New Year to you and your team.
All right. Do we have Mr. Karawe?
Yeah, good morning too.
Good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation. And I feel it's only in order for me to wish you both a happy new year. I would ask for your brief assessment, Mr. Karawe. How was 2023, agriculturally speaking, for you? And how would you say we fared? If I asked you on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate government and its work in agriculture, what score would you give?
Well, thanks very much, and let me take this great opportunity to wish all of you there in the studio and those who are making it possible for us to reach the wider audience a happy new year, and that certainly we should work together to make 2024 far better than 2023. When it comes to agriculture, 2023 has been the least year of government investment in agriculture. Investment has been very low, and as we may be aware that the government itself had financial challenges. It is the year we went into IMF full time, and we were operating conditionalities on the IMF, and even prior to that, government was, compelled to take certain decisions in order to qualify for the IMF bailout, which you can see today we are still struggling to get the needed or the pledges that the IMF has given. So certainly, investment in agriculture last year, that's 2023, had not been the best. Nevertheless, the nature was also charitable to farmers. The usual floods in the northern part of the country did not come. But then, so the rains came in some quantities that actually promoted agricultural production. So by the end of the year, 2023, you could see that there were some seemingly, bumper harvests where people could not sell their rice just because the people who are supposed to pick up the produce, saw it as very expensive as against imported rice. So That is the fate of it, and we think that it's not the best, of course. But the government has shifted from the phase 1 to phase 2, which is supposed to begin 2024. So government excuse was that, well, we're using 2023 to prepare ourselves to launch the phase 2 in 2024.
So your assessment in terms of a score would be what exactly?
I will say that it's my score will be less than 5 out of 10.
Well, less than 5 means what exactly? Is it a 2? Is it a 3? Is it a 4? Is it a 1?
In fact, I will give government 4% in the sense. 4 out of 10. So
okay, 40%.
That's 40%. In the sense that the agriculture sector, government's role in it has been deplorable. Government has failed to
even in spite of rearing for food and jobs, planting for food and jobs, and everything in between, it's been deplorable?
It's deplorable in the sense that you cannot do agriculture without irrigation. And if we ask government, what is the state of the One Village, One Dam, which was meant to have water for irrigation during the dry season? What is the fate of the Polgo multipurpose dam, which had a lot of pageant trees when it was commissioned? Sword was cut, and they have abandoned it. And you cannot go into the future with agriculture without irrigation. What is the fate of agriculture within the mining sectors of the regions of the economy? Galamsey has devastated agricultural infrastructure, and government is looking on, unable to deal with it at all. So certainly, government cry that they are putting agriculture at the forefront. It's not the case. We have training colleges for agriculture. All those graduates that have come out of those training colleges, these are young men and women, not to talk about those who have completed courses in the university on agriculture. They are all at home. They have not got jobs. We are not utilizing them. So certainly government is not doing enough at all beyond the rhetoric.
All right, let me come to you, Bismarck, on this matter. How would you rate 2023, our performance in terms of agriculture and, of course, the food security of our country? How would you assess or rate government in the year 2023? And the next bit, then we'll get into 2024 and what our expectations are. But let's stick to last year.
Well, thank you very much. And let me also take the chance to wish viewers and all listeners a Happy New Year, including our hardworking farmers. Well, indeed, I gravitate towards the point that was shared by my colleague, that's Edward, regarding what has been our assessment of agriculture in 2023. Mind you that in 2023, since the beginning of the Planting for Food and Jobs program, happens to be the only year that farmers didn't get any form of support from government. If you remember, since the PFJ started in 2017, every year, at least, there was a subsidy on seeds and fertilizer for farmers. That was under the PFJ program. And even though in subsequent years, the subsidy components had reduced, at least there was some sort of support system for farmers.
Hello, Bismarck. Hello, Bismarck.
You remember in last, yeah, I'm here. You remember and the fact that.
Go ahead, Bismarck. I can hear you.
Yeah, due to the economic crisis and the fact that we had to go for a bailout, there was some review of various programs, including the PFJ. So with the review of the PFJ, what it meant was that actual implementation couldn't start last year. In fact, the program was launched in August. By then, if you come to the southern part of the country, planting already started and they needed no support. So farmers on their own how to bear the brunt of increasing input prices. Remember the early part of the year too, due to these economic issues and the forex issues, prices of fertilizer and seeds went through the roof. The price was so expensive that farmers couldn't cope. And because there was no support system, it had a way of affecting farmers. So on that part, you could see that government really didn't do very well when it comes to investments. When it comes to infrastructure, the expectation is that the government flagship programs that they touted, like the one village, one dam, the one district, one warehouse, and stuff like that, you had also seen some monies going in there. But I realized that the work that we did indicated that for programs like the one village, one dam, for instance, we didn't see any much work done by governments over the whole year. In fact, the work we did where we saw some defects with a lot of the dams, and we expected government to do some additional work on it. Last year was a bit different. If you come to areas around mechanization, where we've been consistently calling for investment in equipment for farmers to use to ensure that we're able to plant and harvest, that's also on the low. But when it comes to the weather, my colleague spoke about it, that somehow, even though farmers didn't get any form of support from government, the weather was a bit favorable, where there was a bit of a good harvest, if you ask me. However, we also could remember the effects of the flooding that happened on the Volta, that resulted in the flooding of a lot of farms from the Volta to T to the Greater Accra regions, and how a lot of farmers also lost their livelihoods. So, if you ask me, based on the combination of these factors, I would say, even though when it comes to yield, farmers have been a bit fortunate to get good yields because we had averagely good weather. When it comes to actual work by government, I think that government performance has been below average. When it comes to the performance of the sector, if you look at the budget, the indication is that as at November last year, we are growing at around almost 6.something%, and the expectation is to grow around 8.4, which is not really bad if you look at it from that point. But if you're looking at the actuals, you realize that we could have done more, considering the fact that food inflation, even though it has come down, it still leads or it still pulls up the level of inflation in the country. So on the whole, I don't think that government will score very good marks when it comes to...
What would be your score?
Well,
out of 10.
I'm not really good at doing that, but I think that
But you've been really good at giving an assessment of what the metrics are. So based on those metrics, if you had to score government, where would you put them?
I think a bit below average. I will say this. For me, if I'm looking at the support that government is supposed to give to the farmers, that at least for every year, maybe since even the Fourth Republic, every year, government has a sort of support system for farmers. But to know that in 2023, we didn't have anything of that sort to farmers. For me, that brings the marks very,
okay, so your score would be below average, which is what?
Maybe I'll be between 2 and 3 out of 10.
2 and 3 out of 10?
Yes, just because government was not able to provide any form of support to smaller farmers last year.
All right, so both of you are giving fail grades to government. 2 or 3 and 4 from Mr. Karewe are nothing to write home about. Which brings me then to the point on which I want us to conclude. 2 minutes each. Please use your 2 minutes judiciously. I'll start with you, Mr. Karewe. What do you want to see then on the back of all these complaints, failures, lapses in the system? What would you want to see from government to shore up food production, food security, and the farming community in 2024? 2 minutes, Mr. Karewe.
Yeah, thanks very much for the time again. I think that it's just reasonable, rational, and logical that if you look at Ghana's economy and if you look at the inflation rate, food inflation takes over 50%, not only for 1 month, not only for 1 year, but over a period. So the best way to deal with our food, national inflation, which is not healthy for economic development, is to address the food situation. Now, to address the food situation, we know that government does not have all the resources, but it must prioritize, and invest more in agriculture and invest more in irrigation. Government should come out and tell us where they have reached with the irrigation agriculture. Government should tell us how they are going to pick up harvest so that it does not go to waste. They should explain to us why the buffer food stock company is unable to pick up food for now. Why they should explain to us why they should not go and procure food stuff from the local communities to feed SHS. Rather, they import food stuff and send it from Accra to all those places. This is what government must do, and government must increase investment in agriculture, because no country on this earth, even including the developed countries, they spend heavily on subsidy on agriculture. But the point is that once you are subsidizing, you must make sure that there is value for money. This is what government must do in 2024.
All right. For you, Bismarck.
Well, thank you very much. I think for me, government's work is cut out for them for what we have to do for 2024. The first priority is that, I think my colleague mentioned it, the issue about the rice farmers that they've been, especially in the northern part of the country, upper east, northeast regions, where farmers have been able to plant and produce a lot of rice, and they have the rice sitting in the market and there are no buyers because of a lot of factors. I think immediately government should treat it as a state of emergency. Government should find a way to mobilize and aggregate that rice, find a way of storing them, and even use them to supply the various government programs that we are running, the school feeding program, the free CHS. There are a lot of rice out there. Farmers are not able to get markets, and the kind of prices that they are getting, they are very demotivating. And this is a country that we are planning to be self-sufficient in rice by 2025. So if you cannot put our house in order to even aggregate and market the rice that we have, then I'm not sure you can achieve that goal. So that's the first one. The second one, the PFJ 2.0. We know that we used last year to do the preparation. Now, for this year, we are expecting the rollout. Normally, government, when it comes to government programs, one of the big challenges is the timing of the intervention. We know that the planting season for the southern side will start around March, when the first wind comes. Even the first wind even came in this January, but per the planting season, we are expecting to start around March. The expectation is that even before March, we should see a layout, a blueprint as to what ought to be done. We know last year, the government opened a bid for aggregators and input suppliers to bid, to take part in the program. At this time, we were expecting them to even come out with the results, those who have qualified to be aggregators, those who have qualified to be input distributors, those who are qualified to do A, B, C, and D. Let's know the work plan, so that by February, every farmer should know what he or she have to do to benefit from the PFJ 2.0. We don't want government to be lackadaisical in their approach and delay the program, because if it delays, it will get to a point that farmers will not need to take advantage of the program. That is something that we hope government should look out for. The third point is, remember the flooding around the water lake that affect a lot of the farmers. Government plans to do a program to ensure that they restore the farmers back to their economic activities. As at now, we have no idea, we have no indication as to what the plan is. We don't know what the government intends to do. We don't know any plan in place. If you talk to the assemblies, they have no idea. The farmers are still, they don't know what to do. I hope that this also becomes a matter of priority to government. Government should come out clearly and let us know which plans they have for farmers whose farms were affected by the spillage. Let us know what plans you have for them. If it is a monetary package, let us know. If you are giving them input, let us know. It should be timely.
Right.
Because as I'm mentioning, the farming should be timely. And then the last one, let's hope that government also begins to invest in infrastructure. Our irrigation systems, our mechanization are things that are still of utmost importance to farmers. And I hope that government will pay attention to it this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. Bismarck Norte, Director of Communications, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, together with Edward Karewe, General Secretary, General Agriculture Workers Union. Thank you for joining the conversation. Up next, we posed a number of questions. We want to get interactive with you right after the break. You know the numbers to call. I'm going to give you a head start. 0302 211 691 extension 2. 0302 211 691 extension 2. So 2 things. Do you have light? Did your lights go off yesterday? What was the situation? And the second question we posed, both with responses on Joy News on Facebook as well. If you could change one thing about our country, one thing in Ghana, what thing would that be? Or if it is people as well, you can share with us. Those will be taking your thoughts right after the break. Welcome back on the AM show. Now we're going to go on Facebook, focus on some of your comments on 3 topical issues. Right before we take your calls, you can have your calls also come through. Now we asked, what is the power situation in your area? And a number of you sent in responses. Every day the light goes off for about 2 hours to 4 hours in Wassa, Ekropong in the western region. Oh, sir. Wow. Sorry about that. Jawil Tough Seed says, light out in some parts of Temma, okay, the industrial enclave. Okay, so these are messages from some hours ago leading into this morning. There's also, this one says, light out in West Hills Mall and New Botiano. So this was sometime from yesterday leading into the early hours of today. Suleiman Adam says, Upper West, Dondoli, there's a power outage. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Lincoln Abraham Futukpo says, stable in Denu. Good to hear. But I see some responses to the one who said stable in Denu. I think there may be people contesting him. I don't know. Okay, so this one says, behave yourself. What kind of lie is this? All right. I suspected that some people might disagree with him. This one says, we have light in Tamale, Zaguri. Okay, good to hear. This one says, light out in my room. We don't know where you are. I can't even sleep, the other one says. And someone says, power bank, light out in Red Top. Okay, and then light out in Bimbala in the northern region, light out in Bolgatanga. Hey, so wait, the northern belt, I see a lot of these from the northern belt. That doesn't mean a lot of these places all had power outages. There was also a light out situation in Gomwa East. That's interesting. Asankragwa as well, light out, you said back then, and in Kitekrachi in the Oti region, of course, then Ashaiman, Middle East, you say, Ashaiman, Ashtown. Light out in Bolga, light out in Ifiduase, Ashanti, in Tamale. Okay, so a lot of people from Tamale. All right, so we get a picture of what the power situation was like yesterday leading into this morning, dawn. Let's also talk about, we posed that question, what one thing would you have changed? If you could change one thing about Ghana, what would it be? So what were some of your responses? This one says, the Constitution. Okay, the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. The next one, Mark Kofi says, no one seems to tell us what we changed, what we want changed, or what we want added. Okay, I think that was a response to it. This one says price control system. But do we have a price control system? More people saying the Constitution. Robert Bosso also says the Constitution. Obedate says the name Black Star to Great Star of Ghana. Okay, that's an interesting one. The Constitution. Helena Forsen, Ajima Redu, the Constitution. Neelan says the education system and our mindset. Okay. Faisal says the Constitution. Eric Darlison says the mindset of foot soldiers. I believe that's one of the things on all sides. You say the Minister of Roads and the Minister of Finance. Okay. Anita says leadership at every level. And maybe the final one will do. Abubakar says the current management of our affairs of this country. All right. let's finally also contemplate. There's an interesting development. The education minister has been responding to the former president, John Dramani Mahama, on a review of the educational system. And he says what we need is an improvement, not a review. And there are some very interesting comments there. Free SHS needs only improvement, not review, Education Minister to Mahama. And Ebenezer Ahin says, I have a challenge with the position of the Education Minister. And there's a lot of talk. Wise Gardner says, okay, I can't read his comments. It's not exactly savory. But this one says, Kwesi Yankee says, without review, how can we have improvement, Mr. Education Minister? Asaliba Rich says, okay, all right, I will sidestep that one. But he says, we review to improve. I don't want any unsavory language. Thomas Asako says, what will bring about the improvements, Mr. Minister? The minister has been very consistent with his lack of something. I'll just choose to sidestep that. This one says, you have to review it first to know exactly what is wrong, and then you can find the solution to improve it. Jibril Yusuf says so. Nilimo Isaac says, is improvement not part of the goals of reviewing a policy? Okay, and Nana Safo says, is Ghana education under improvement? And maybe the final ones, Kwashi Amevo, playing with our education. Okay, all right. So that's it. You can call those numbers, that number at least, to let us know what is on your mind. We can pick just a few calls, so you can be one of the 2 or 3 callers. 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691. We've had a lot to talk about this morning. You can call through, share your thoughts as we go. We've done Facebook now. How about hearing from you? Pick up the phone, call us, 0302-211-691. What's on your mind? I'll take some more messages. Francis Dakwa Aristo says, what's the difference? The review can call for improvement. There's also Kweku Jampasa who says, and what's the difference between review and improvement? It appears that's the tone, that's the tenor of the messages coming through. Ahin Kweku says, the person who is not possible, what review is he coming to do? Okay. Then this one says, on what basis do you improve if an assessment, that is a review, has not been carried out on the policy? Okay. And some people going hard, railing hard against the education minister, but I think you can make your point without denigrating him. We have Frederick from Kumasi on the line. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining the conversation. What are your quick thoughts for us?
Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. What I want to talk about is about the Ghana. There are a lot of things going within this country, so I cannot talk about all, but definitely I want to speak about the education.
Right.
I think nobody is against the free SHS, and nobody is against. I think when the introduction of the free SHS, I wrote an article. I was a national service then, and I said if I had the opportunity to enjoy free SHS, by now I would have gotten my PhD or probably doing something else.
Right.
But because I couldn't, because lack of money, and then 350,000, now 36, I couldn't go to any class at that time.
Right.
So free SHS is very good, but the implementation was.
But were you eventually able to get that aspect of your education done? Were you eventually able to?
So yes, when I got to 25, I had the opportunity to go and write.
Okay. We thank God. We thank God for that.
Yes. So I think free SHS is a good policy, but the implementation. Last time I made a reference to the 4 years introduction that President Kufuor introduced. It was good policy then, and those who ruled those 4 years examination, they passed. In fact, almost everybody passed. But the students were having issues with accommodation in classrooms. So why can't we build infrastructure before introducing such policy? So we need to review it because students are suffering, parents are suffering in that aspect, and I expect the education is that to at least sit down and then review some of the things that we should offering.
So you are for a review. It is good, yes, but it must be reviewed.
Yes, I'm for a review.
All right.
Because he's making a statement, but that statement is also part of the review policy that the previous government and then other experts are talking about. So we need a review to help the education system in our country. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, Fred. Unfortunately, that is all time will allow us to do this morning. We appreciate the number of messages you sent us on all those issues on Facebook. This is where I hang my boots or take off my hat and let the next person come along. We have a bit of a, should I call it a surprise? Wonderful surprise coming your way shortly for Joy News Desk, our very own new person. Yes, Christiana Sweetie Abochi will be delivering Joy News Desk sweet and succinct over the next hour from 10 to 11. Just stay tuned to your television sets. Stay with your phones, whatever gadgets you're using. Joy News Desk will be up next. But from us here to you, wherever you are, we love you. We always want you to know that. We appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us over these last few hours. Up next, Joy News Desk.